cuffs are off, man. Get right. Too many left in these leagues, but I ain't gonna leave. I'ma get right. Get right. Down to the bottom and scratch it for all the...
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up everybody? It's Marcus Grant.
This is AJ Dillon of the Green Bay Packers.
I gotta give a shout out to y'all at Get Right Fantasy.
If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You want to lose your league?
Our league. Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
And best of luck with your podcast. Appreciate the support.
You're tuned in to watch my boys at Get Right Fantasy Network. Get you right. Enjoy the show.
But I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeves up. Yeah, go roll your sleeves up. And I'm getting down cause I roll my sleeves up. And I'm getting right cause I roll my sleeves.
Yo, what up? Welcome to our Friday night sit start show. It's going to be a little different tonight. Normally we've got Kendall and Classic Mike holding it down for that early part of the part one of the episode. And then you're used to seeing myself and Anthony come in for part two. Classic is doing classic things, and Rasta got a concert tickets or something. I don't know. They're just whatever. They don't like football. They don't
Russell
like
Peters,
us.
I think, baby.
Yeah, no, they're all doing good stuff. So we are going to do a mega show. That's what it is. We're going to do the whole slate, me and you. We're going to rock this thing out. It's going to be awesome. But welcome in, and hopefully you are not in a place where it is freezing cold and snowing like that game last night, because that first half, all right, normal football game, good conditions. The second half, these guys are kicking field goals. I can't even see the dang ball. So happy pre-Thanksgiving to everybody. Kendall, what do you have going on for Thanksgiving this week?
Oh, what do I got going on for Thanksgiving? Honestly, I feel so bad saying this, but like I definitely, like, my wife is so much better than me with the holidays and the planning, and like
I think
gets along, like, you know, organizes like the group chat for like both sides of our family. So like, God bless her, she's so good about it. Like, make sure like I'm in the loop and whatnot. Wants my opinion, but she's got that so choreographed. It's pretty good. Man, this upcoming weekend, I forget exactly where we're going, but I know we do some pretty good food. I feel like my side of the family does like non-traditional Thanksgiving food. We do we're like the county fair crew. We did a lot of county fair stuff growing up. And so like real quickly we got to like hey, you guys just want to like do whatever we like for Thanksgiving instead of doing traditional stuff. And like we went to like tacos so fast for Thanksgiving, you know, good tacos, homemade stuff. But I think, yeah, we've kind of been doing like more of a potluck family thing last couple of years. So I think we're doing that next week, and I forget what we were requested to do, but it's probably something pretty redneck. It's got ranch or mayo in it, and probably too much. But
now, are these turkey tacos, nice, or are these like taco tacos?
Honestly, it depends who's making them. So
like a little turkey there, a little cranberry sauce on the top. My
mom's the turkey taco connoisseur. My wife is. She makes a mean fish taco. It is absolutely fantastic. Right. So I don't know. I'm more of the traditional one. So we'd have to see. I have no idea where it's going to go. I think we might be in charge of dessert. So this could be like a cinnamon empanada apple taco. Maybe we get crazy with it. I don't know.
All right. Well, now I'm getting hungry, and we got a show to do, so we can't be talking about this all night.
We got a 3-hour marathon.
We might need
Megala show too. It's the wrong time to get.
Yeah, I know. We can't eat turkey. We fall asleep in the second half of the show here. So cheers. Yes. Well, I'm off to Chicago to go and visit my sister. My mom is flying in from DC. And we're going to be doing the turkey, and we're going to be doing the stuffing and all the sides and the fixins and the pies. And we're doing a very traditional Thanksgiving. And I am not going to be watching the Cowboys play the Giants in the middle of the day. I can promise you that game. No, I'm kidding. I will watch the Lions in the morning, and I will watch the Dolphins and the Packers at night. But boy, oh, but we're going to talk about this week first. We'll talk about next week. Let's talk about this week. So
that's fair.
Kendall, before we get started, as always, want to thank the sponsors over at Underdog. So, Kendall, if you would be so kind as to thank our sponsor and tell the folks what Underdog is all about.
All right, yeah. I mean, I'm never not happy to talk about my boys over at Underdog. Like, the short side of this is also like me, Phil, all of Get Right. Like, we're Underdog nerds regardless. Before they were a sponsor, we spent and won a lot of money on the site already crushing best ball tournaments. So well before we were very fortunate enough for them to be a sponsor, like we were already a big fan. I think that's important for you guys to know, just throwing it out there. But simply put, it's the best and easiest play to play fantasy sports. Particularly, we enjoy their best ball tournaments and live stream a lot of them. So definitely pay attention to that. Best ball leagues, if you're not 100% sure, there where you can draft an entire team without a season-long commitment, no waivers, trades, no weekly setting of lineups. Most of you guys know this for sure. We kind of have best ball, but the point is you can draft hundreds of lineups and not have to manage any of it. So all good stuff. Sign up now. Use our promo code GETRIGHT. Received a 50% deposit match up to $1,000, which is kind of crazy. Anyone who signed up previously knows that these are ridiculous promos. This used to be, I remember the days where this was a $200 match. We're up to $1,000 now. It is an awesome time. If you haven't taken the jump yet, you should get on Underdog. Also, we've got a special Jameis Winston pick. Super, super good. I've picked him up everywhere, so this is also pretty fun before we got this. But we have a special Jameis Winston pick 'em set plus or minus 0.5 total yards. So I think he's probably going to get there. So this is a full freebie. Get on our free pick and download the Underdog app as soon as you can. If you don't know how, message us. We'll get you on. We'll get you there.
And hopefully you picked him up. Hopefully you got into your Underdog bonus yesterday because Jameis Winston obviously played last night. He did. I'm going to report the news, Kendall, is a big shocker. He did go the higher on the 0.5 passing yards. I was
nervous, but we did win that one.
I confirmed it. That was a winner last night. So
I had some family sign up. I don't know about you, but I definitely did a little business with the family thing. I full shamelessly did some Underdog plugs on the family call. I'm like, if you're a sponsor, I want to get you on there, but also we're going to be watching some football. I know I'm the fantasy football guy in the family. Check this out. Did a full little Underdog thing, got them signed up, got them on the free bet, basically. All had a good time. I may have turned some of my family members into sports bettors and fantasy players, but I'm about it. I don't know about you, but like
I did get my sister last year to place a couple of bets on some props that she doesn't want to do fantasy and keep up with it every week, but she was kind of looking at some of the season long stuff, and she knows football. My family's always known football, all sports, obviously. So my mom and sister can talk sports better than most quote unquote men. If you want to go with traditional roles in this country, they're dialed in. They know what's happening. So,
nice.
And I'm pleased to say she won a couple of those bets last year. I don't know. I'll find out this week when I go see her. If I actually didn't ask her if she's put anything down this season, but let's really just quickly talk about last night. Cause the first half was fine. Normal football game, typical AFC North game. And the second half was a blizzard whiteout snowball. So if you missed the game last night, here's the quick recap. The 2-8 Browns beat the division leading Steelers. It was a wild game with crazy turnovers. Myles Garrett is that dude. No questions asked. He is unbelievable. Caused a ton of problems for the Steelers. No injuries to report, thankfully. So that's really good. The challenging thing, I think, if you watched the game last night, was Cedric Tillman didn't look good. And that's, I think, something that you need to start to think about as we get into this Thanksgiving, this kind of short week with a couple Thursday night games. And then obviously the mini slate that you'll have just means less players available for Sunday. So Tillman didn't look great, and Njoku dropped an easy touchdown, but then made a ridiculous catch on a 2-point conversion that should have gone the opposite way. He should have caught the wide open touchdown and dropped the 2-point conversion, but that was not a great night for him. Jordan Akins seems to be more involved than maybe we want. But if you are a Russell Wilson owner and got a little nervous that Justin Fields came in, look, it's because that's the way the game was going. They were losing the game. You couldn't really get great footing. And obviously the snow made it difficult for the pass catchers. So they needed Fields to run the ball a bit more. Don't lose faith. If you're the Russell Wilson owner, that it's going to be a split. It's not. Justin Fields, I think, played like 6 snaps or 7 snaps. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, you just kind of take the snow and throw the second half sort of out the window. And the result was, I don't think anybody expected that. But as we get into this week's slate, we are in the Binado, the Bipocalypse, the Bi-Mageddon. I don't know if there's any other puns, but those are 3, I think, is more than enough. But look, guys, we've got the Bills, Falcons, Bengals, Jaguars, Jets, and Saints out on bye, which means you are missing Josh Allen, Captain Kirk, Joe Burrow, Kamara, Bijan, Brees. I mean, you guys know the players. No Jamar Chase this week. No T. Higgins this week, right? It's a lot. It's a lot of no Garrett Wilson.
Like offenses with like 3 to 4 pieces,
right?
I think 3 or 4 of these offenses are like you kind of start everybody. It's a big one. It's
fantasy relevant players, and it's unfortunately with the way that people drafted, you might have Bijan and T. Higgins, right? You might be down one of each of those kinds of guys. You might have Jamar Chase and James Cook. So Kendall and I are going to do our best tonight to give you guys some names that we're not normally thinking about, especially at the running back position that we need to think about because of how many players are out this week and just because of injury. So why don't we start here at the top, Kendall? Let's go ahead. The Chiefs game here. The 9-1 Kansas City Chiefs will travel to the 3-7 Panthers. And I think we probably would all say that this is a game that we expect the Chiefs to win. But from a fantasy perspective, Isaiah Pacheco is already ruled out. I didn't really expect him to come back, especially not in this game. So not a big deal because he has been practicing. And this, of course, is a game I think that the Chiefs will win long ways. It's not possible, I don't think, for the Panthers to win this game. But Jonathan Brooks is available. He'll be behind Chuba, of course. So let's start on the Chiefs side of the ball because it's pretty easy. You're starting Mahomes. You're starting Travis Kelce. You're starting Kareem Hunt, at least for one more week. Let's talk about the receivers. Kendall, how do we feel about D-Hop? How do we feel about Nuke? And how do we feel about Xavier Worthy this week against the Panthers?
So I have them as starts, not must starts. They grade out as kind of like flex-worthy plays. D-Hop mostly because his role is solid. It's in its position where I think their offense should function fine, and I think he's got a good role in that offense, right? So he's involved. He's looking a little more. He's less projectable than when he first came on the scene, right? Yep. But I still think this is a pretty strong spot for him. So he's nearly a must start for me. I think in most worlds he's going to get 7-8 targets and do reasonable enough with them. The Worthy stuff, it's like, yeah, Worthy got more involved. We always knew that rookies tend to get more involved later on. That's happening. Worthy should have always been more involved at some point. Otherwise, they're just burning a first round pick. Essentially, it doesn't make a lot of sense for Worthy to just remain a gadget player. It's really expensive for a gadget player otherwise, right? Like, you always knew he was going to get involved. So, but it's like how long and when and what spots, hard to say. And I think that's where your confidence in D-Hop kind of goes down. But I think D-Hop is going to dominate the snap share. So I think that's where D-Hop's an easy in. And Worthy is still in a spot where the offense should flow really, really well. I just don't know how much his gadgetry is going to be needed. I think he can easily get to a run, slow down the game pretty quick, and Worthy doesn't have to have a big game here. So Worthy slots in more as a flex play for me, and I'm not looking to start him if I can avoid it, but on a Bipocalypse, his combination of good offense plus upside, or at least reasonable offense, it's not an offense that's putting up prolific fantasy numbers, but serviceable. You can do a lot worse than I think a lot of people are going to be doing, right? I just don't want to call him a must start. I'm not giving him that tag whatsoever. You can find options, but he's okay. D-Hop for me is a stronger play. Worthy is a low-end flex play.
Yeah, I mean, I have Hopkins at 25 this week, and I have Worthy at 35. So I have Hopkins just outside those two if you're in a 2-wide receiver league, but certainly worthy of a start in a 3-wide receiver set. Kendall, like you said, in a flex if it is a 2-wide receiver set. And I have Worthy just at the cusp of that wide receiver 3 range. And I have Worthy there. If you've watched the show, if you've listened to my content, read my content, you know I've been down on Worthy since pre-draft. He's never been someone that I've been super high on. So, again, try to eliminate my bias, be a good analyst. It's more about the matchup that I like for Worthy this week because the Panthers are so poor. But again, like you said, it's a lot of gadgetry. And so my bigger question, and Kendall, you and I'll talk about this a ton this offseason as we get more into dynasty mode, but like, is Xavier Worthy going to be consistent? Is he going to be reliable, or is he just going to be what he's been this season throughout his career arc of boom bust? He can go and get 2 touchdowns off of, 6 catches or carries, manufactured touches, versus is he really going to be somebody who gets a lot of targets? So we'll talk about that another time. But that's a question I've kind of had to started to brew in my mind now that we've had really kind of getting to that like half of a season's worth of data to start collecting, almost 3/4 of a season to collect. So Anyone else on the Kansas City side of the ball? I have everyone else on the Kansas City side of the ball as a sit. Is there anyone you want to talk about, or should we flip gears here and talk about the Carolina Panthers?
We can flip to Carolina.
Yeah. Adam Thielen activated off IR. He's back. I don't know that excites me, but I know there are people who, again, by apocalypse, by NATO, whatever we're calling it. Xavier Legette, Adam Thielen. Let's talk about the wide receivers. I have Chuba as a start this week really quickly. Let me just check the old running back rankings. Where do I have? Well, I'm still scrolling. So I have him at 19, so that's a start for me. But where do you have, or sorry, you don't have to tell me where you have, but how do you view Legette and Thielen this week? Is this a place where they're flex worthy?
They're flex worthy in that it's pretty simple in that the Chiefs are more vulnerable through the pass than, I mean, they're number one against the run. So like no one's better against the run than the Chiefs. If you have to beat them, you're going to be playing from behind. You're going to have to pass anyways, and the way to beat them is through the pass. So generally, I'm going to attack the pass catchers, and I'm going to look to fade the running backs from like multiple stat points of angles here, right? The tough part is, I mean, even though all the game script is in the favor of those pass catchers, it's a weak quarterback situation, and outside of pure volume, I don't think there's much else juice to it. So, like them versus, I'm always going to take volume, like the damn near guaranteed volume over any question mark, right? Because that has questionable everything added to it. And if you can guarantee me about 8 targets, they're all NFL players. They can choose to do some pretty good stuff with them sometimes, right? I'm going to take the volume. So for that, like that's where Legette is a little more flex worthy. I don't know how good Thielen is in terms of flex worthiness without seeing his snap share, what the offense does. I think Legette's a little bit higher than Thielen for me. Thielen just has a lack of an upside for me, where Legette's also the X, so he's got a little bit of touchdown upside kind of built in there. You want to feature your rookie when you got nothing else to lose. Maybe that's kind of just where you want to go in general with it. They grade out as like mid-range flex plays for me. They're not strong by any means, but in the circumstances, they actually grade out as starts, just not strong ones. And it's because there's a game script where like things can go their way more often than not, that I think they might get the nod over some close spots. But that's all I can say for them.
Yeah. I mean, I have Legette higher than Thielen. I have Legette at 43, and I'm still scrolling 59 for Thielen. So I'm personally not starting either one. I'm not going to flex either one. I don't like the matchup. I don't like Bryce Young. I just don't see a way where the Panthers can keep up. And it's not even about keeping up.
And when they do, it's still the running game, right? Like the way they keep up is that even though the Chiefs are number one, like Chuba's really good.
What I'm curious about, the big question that I have in this game is the same question that 80 million people in this country, however many millions of people that play fantasy football have, is what is Brooks going to look like? Like, what is his and I'm not necessarily worried about his snap share, because I don't expect it to be very high the first week. Like, is he like, and again, you just mentioned it, like the Kansas City run defense, Chris Jones is a game record. Kansas City's run defense is awesome. So my question is just like, what does he look like? I'm not worried about his snap share. I'm not worried about his involvement. I'm not starting him this week unless you're just,
can you even trust what you see? Like, what if you see really good or really bad?
Yeah.
Do you have to fade either outcome? Like in the range of terrible to great, does it also not matter? Because
and
I guess great would matter. Technically great would matter.
It ain't going to be great.
But horrible wouldn't. Great.
It ain't going to great.
If I saw an elite game from him, I'll say it right now. I'll just be like, all right, fuck it, he's Gibbs. But if he doesn't show out as like a great play, if he sucks, I don't even think you take that with much give to it, to be real.
And that's it. That's how that was the perfect transition to this next matchup we're going to talk about here, right? Like, do not panic with your hair on fire if you do not see a solid anything out of Brooks, right? Because it just, the matchup, the injury, the first NFL game, like every deck in the car, every card in the deck is stacked against him this week. Let's see what it looks like over this last half of the season, and then make a decision, especially for the Dynasty players that are listening tonight. What does it look like for Brooks? Don't judge him on this one alone. So the Minnesota Vikings at 8-2 will travel to Kendall's Chicago Bears. The Bears are going to be wearing the striped uniforms. They got the stripy helmets going on. So when they lose this game to the Vikings, they will look good doing it. So I don't have any problem with that. We got a 3.5 point difference here in favor of the Vikings, coming in at just over a field goal, 40.5 over under on this game. On the Minnesota side of the ball, obviously you are starting JJ, you are starting Aaron Jones, you are starting Hawkinson. Kendall, you have DeAndre Swift and DJ Moore as must starts in this game. Are you concerned with Caleb's play? I have Swift as a must start simply because of Apocalypse, and he's been the focal point. But are you?
I couldn't find a way to get him below RB20 in my rankings because there was no one there.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I'm more concerned with DJ Moore. Are you?
Yeah.
I have him at 29 this week. So in a 3 wide receiver league, I have him as a start. But in a 2 wide receiver league, I'll be honest, Minnesota's defense is pretty darn good. And I have not seen much out of Caleb. So I would prefer to try, if I can, again, by Apocalypse, you may not have a choice. I would try not to have I don't know what. Let's just for 10 seconds. Why is DJ Moore a must start for you this week?
He's a must start because say what you want about Caleb's accuracy. His accuracy on open throws has been abysmal, but the few highlights of his entire season have been on his timing routes to DJ Moore. Those are the most beautiful plays of his season. And honestly, if you look back, you're like, damn, that looks pretty good. Like, that's a nice little, like, hey, Caleb and DJ could be a thing. Like, I made trades based on how pure that looked. Yeah. And from a, like, dude, I've seen DJ Moore play with some shitty quarterbacks, and I think Caleb's shitty now, but should be overall much better at some point, right? So, like, I saw some magic there. But when it's these, like, pure feel and he's not into it routes, like, yeah, it hasn't been there for me, but, like, it's not even me being a homer saying that better days are there. It's better days are there just simply because of the type of offensive plays they're going to run. And when a quarterback with a talented arm plays a timing ball, with a talented wide receiver, that's just going to work if you run it a few times a game. Like, it's an algorithm play, right? Like, and we just have to plug in a new offensive play caller. They might just call some plays that should work with talented people. And you know what? I think it's going to work in that simple equation, right? Like, yeah. Look at some of the short routes. Like, I'll call it one more thing. Some of the weird stuff where it's like a short screen to DJ Moore. That's been great for 20 yards. And it's also been Caleb throwing it 3 yards short on a screen. Like, ridiculous stuff, right? I'm saying when it works with DJ, it's good. When it hasn't worked, it's because Caleb is in a terrible dysfunction. I think that Minnesota's strength is mostly in run stopping. I think Caleb having confidence with his legs to extend some plays. This is one of those, the Bears have typically played down to worse competition, but we ruin really good teams' lives more often than not, because when we choose to play up to our competition, typically we have the roster to do so. It's like a weird thing. Like, we beat good teams sometimes. We also lose to the worst teams and disappoint more often than not. I see this as a situation where our very good secondary is actually going to give someone like Darnold some fits. We're the type of defense that can handle a Justin Jefferson where most people can't. That's like a weird thing to say, but we can actually do it. They have a banged up running game. That's the one place you can beat us. And Aaron Jones has eaten, he's destroyed us, as a running back, but I think he's in a spot where maybe we're going to be fine this time. I see this as a maybe upset in a close game, and maybe they can't block the kick like the Packers did. So I think it's a low scoring game. I don't love the season or the ceiling for DJ Moore, but I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised for the first time with the Bears finally beating the Vikings here with a decent offensive output for these guys. Rome is probably going to be the disappointment.
So you heard it here first. Bears are going to win the game, according to Kendall. That's my question, right? So I have DJ Moore at 29, I have Rome at 33, and I have Keenan at 38.
I got Rome 34, DJ 28. We're one spot off each.
So can you comfortably start? Your rankings and my rankings say that Rome is a start in a 3 wide receiver league. I
think he is. He's also an X wide receiver that's getting the red zone targets coming off of a 10 target game. He is ranked at a certain. You ever like ranking versus projectables? Sometimes if I'm looking at rankings, someone's projectables have a range of outcomes that's just much juicier. Rome's a 34 for me too, but he's a juicy 34 in terms of the rankings.
To me, it's like, I think Keenan, like, again, we talk about this with offenses with lots of pieces all the time, right? We talked about it for a long time when Mixon was there with the Bengals, with Higgins, with Chase, with Mick. Like, someone has to, and it's the Lions, right? We talk about the Lions every week. Not all of these players who are fantasy worthy, who are drafted on your fantasy teams, are going to have a great week. It's not possible. Someone has to fail, right? So to me, it's like, I think that's Keenan again this week. I'm going to fade Keenan. I'm starting Rome in 3 wide receiver leagues because I again agree with you. I think he has more upside. But that's it. Like, I'm not going to be going to play the tight end like Cole Kmet. I'm not playing Cole Kmet, even though tight ends are, I just don't see this as a game with this Vikings defense where 3 of these players have big relevant fantasy days. I think if anyone's going to have a fantasy relevant day, it's going to be 2 guys, and we don't know. I mean, if we knew which 2 it was, we would tell you, play these 2 players and you're going to get the points. The reality is we just don't know. But I'm taking I'm taking my best educated guess that it's going to be Rome. I'm starting Swift for obvious reasons with Bipocalypse and as just being a running back. And I'm going to fade Keenan. And if I have DJ Moore, which I personally don't in my portfolio, but I know a lot of people that do, I would take the upside of DJ Moore and Rome over Keenan. So let's talk about Jordan Addison real quick. Oh, sorry. Trey Gardner. Quick question from Trey. Kendall, if you want to read that out for us.
A buddy of mine, rare occasion where obviously longtime listener, fan of the show, actually occasionally sometimes a client of mine in real life, which is super rare but super awesome. What up, Trey? Way to be. If you're a fan of diesel engines, Trey works for Cummins. Super sweet company.
Let's go.
Hey guys, a long-time listener, first-time commenter, our boy Trey Gardner. Rome seems to be a buy low. I wanted to pop this one up here because, Phil, me and you don't normally do a Friday show, but me and you are sort of the de facto Dynasty degens of the group, and Trey's got a Dynasty question here. So I thought I never get a chance to pick your brain on Dynasty as much as I normally do. What do you see with Rome in his Dynasty window? What are your thoughts on that? Everyone's heard mine ad nauseum. Love to get your take.
Yeah, I mean, I love the question, and I'll use a real life example to answer it. Kendall, you know this because I threw it in the group chat early, I think on Monday this week. But I got an offer this week. I've been trying to trade for Zay Flowers for more like rest of season in my Dynasty leagues to try to just push myself kind of into that. I'm in the playoffs in almost all my Dynasty leagues, and the ones I'm not, I'm trading for picks, right? But for the ones where I'm going to make the playoffs, like I need something. I'm trying to upgrade kind of that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and trying to get Zay. And I got a counter offer. I don't remember what I sent, but I got the counter offer of Jalen Polk plus Rome for Flowers. And I turned that down. And, it's simple for me because I don't see Keenan Allen in this offense next year. I don't see DJ Moore being very happy right now. Now, I think things are going to change when Bobby Slowick is the head coach of the Bears next year, or, Ben Johnson is the head, like one of these hot offensive coordinators takes the Bears job when they fire Eberflus. But it's hard for me because of the talent of Rome to say that this season is his career arc. I don't believe that. I don't know if I have seen enough. Trey, sorry, this probably won't excite you. I don't know if I have seen enough from Rome this year to predict a year 2 breakout, right? We always talk about that year 2 breakout. This is when guys are going to really take that next step. And we've seen it from a lot of players, right? There's only one Jordan Addison. Sorry, I'm looking at our show sheet. There's only one Jamar Chase. There's only one Justin Jefferson. And there's a reason why those guys came onto the scene as rookies, did what they did, frickin' crushed it, and then they've just been great ever since. But most receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr. included in this conversation, neighbors, they take a year or 2 to develop before they really grow into that, kind of outlook. Look at what Drake London has done. Drake London never had a quarterback. Everyone was, is he a bust? Is he not going to be very good? All of a sudden, Kirk Cousins comes to town. He's wide receiver 5 on the season. Like, I know it's not a year 2 breakout, but this is my point, is it takes a little time. So I'm still holding Rome unless you can trade very high on him, find someone that's just willing to overpay. But for right now, I think year 2, year 3, it's going to depend on 3 things. Number 1, what is the quality of Caleb? Does he develop into the quarterback we think he's going to be? Number 2, who is the head coach and offensive coordinator? Number 3, what is Rome's talent going to be like? So those are the 3 things that I'm looking at to kind of figure out, is Rome really going to be, quote unquote, that dude? I still believe he is going to be a very serviceable weekly wide receiver 2 that you can plug and play in your lineup and feel very confident in. We just haven't seen that yet from a consistency perspective. And I think we'll get there. So let's move on, because this next game is not going to take very long. The 2-8 Tennessee Titans will travel to Houston to take on the 7-4 Texans, where the Texans are 8.5-point favorites. 41.5 over under in this game. Tony Pollard is going to be a must start for the Titans simply because of what we're dealing with. I think you can pretty much assume any running back we talk about as a must start is there this week because of Bipocalypse. I think Calvin Ridley is in there for you just because he's the only guy in town.
Pure volume, 12
Pure
targets
volume.
is almost guaranteed.
And on the Houston side of the ball, obviously you're starting Mixon. You're obviously starting Nico. And I think you can start Tank. I know we've had some questions in our group chat, JSN, Debo, Tank, like some of those names have been thrown around. Obviously, we'll get to the Niners and the news about Brock Purdy. But let's talk about CJ Stroud really quickly because Rustin and I have talked about it ad nauseum. Stroud has not been good without Nico. He hasn't. He just hasn't looked like the rookie of the year that we saw. And in this game at home, over a touchdown favorite, where do you see, and where, if you have your rankings, Kendall, where do you have Stroud this week?
He's pretty buried for me. I don't love the matchup. It's mostly Tennessee's inability to produce points that I think lends itself to an outcome of extremely low over-unders. It lends itself to Tennessee struggling to put up a touchdown, which means Houston needs to fumble in one, and that's really all they'll ever need to do, which just forces Houston out of any sort of play volume in general, including passing volume. It could be a game where Stroud attempts 24 to 26 passes. I'm talking sub 15, 16 completions, which is just that you're starting to get into 150-yard projections, and that's it's when you can get to that level, it's hard to fall in love with any pass catcher to see any sort of semblance of upside when the opposing opposition just won't create any urgency for any sort of touchdown or reliable yardage. Right. So I see it as a game I just want to fade from fantasy production. I kind of want to, it's one of those sometimes I see games that are just blind unders because an offense has name value over what I think the game will turn into.
Yeah.
And that's one of those situations where I'm fading Dell, and I actually don't think Nico has a big game either, to be honest, probably just enough. But if he doesn't get in the end zone, I don't see a 150-yard game from Nico, which is honestly where he was at previously.
Yeah, I like that they're at home. I like that they're in the dome. I know obviously last night was a crazy snowstorm, but for places around the country, not where I live, but for the rest of everyone else, it's getting cold, it's getting snowy. I have Stroud at 14 this week. I'll be honest, man. I'm with the Brock Purdy news. I have a Debo, JSN, Tank, somebody else, McConkey. I might have to play Tank over Debo now because I just don't believe that it's going to be. We'll talk about the Niners in a minute, but to your point about Tank, he is on the fence for me this week as far as do we play him or not? What I do think is that I think this is another Mixon game, and I know obviously we talked about Mixon being a must start, but to your point about the pass catchers, I do not have Stroud as a start in one quarterback leagues this week. So if I don't have him as a start, does that mean that I'm a little lower? And I'll just go ahead and pull my wide receiver rankings. I have Tank at 26, so I have him just out that wide receiver 2, or excuse me, start 2, and I guess I'm higher on Nico than I thought. I have Nico at 6, but you're right. I don't know if it's a 150-yarder and a touchdown for Nico. So I think you're starting Nico without question. Stroud should throw it. Look, he's averaging roughly about 32.5 passes a game. He'll probably throw it about that. But again, last week we saw it on Monday night. I understand Mixon got all the touchdowns, but 0 passing touchdowns for CJ Stroud. And he just doesn't look great. So what are you feeling about Dalton Schultz? Obviously, we know Diggs out for the year. He's been out a couple weeks already. Dalton Schultz a little bit more involved, last week, from a involvement as far as snap percentage, but is with the landscape of tight ends being kind of what it is, 7 targets last week, 5 catches. Are you playing Schultz because you have to, or would you try to waiver wire somebody?
I'm still trying to waiver wire somebody in most cases, but that's mostly because of a touchdown upside situation where I'm seeing a track record specifically with the Texans offense where the yardage hasn't been there and neither have the touchdowns. When I'm looking at tight ends, I still see some available on the waiver wire that I see have a higher. Take Hunter Henry, for example, right? It's being practical.
Yeah.
Right? Hunter Henry has a really nice red zone target percentage. He's got consistent 8-9 target games. When the offense is doing offense things and when the offense tends to need to do offense things, I want a tight end that can check some of those boxes, right? Like that's how you find these games out of nowhere at a position that just don't materialize, right? That's one of my things I'm looking for. Like find me multiple outcomes, right, that are tangible that lead to this player being meaningful in a lot of spots where they can be projectable, right? Not just some kind of random, like super theoretical piece of nonsense, right? And I think Schultz is like, well, 7 targets, 5 catches, like surely that should mean something. Like, no, it hasn't ever in this offense. The touchdowns are not there. These are not red zone looks ever. These are not 10 zone looks. They're not green zone looks. They're the least valuable 7 targets I've ever seen in my entire life with 0 yak potential. So like you're killing me. Like give me Jonnu because of some yak potential in some red zone. Give me Henry
We're gonna talk about
for
him in a
9 targets and 3 of them might be red zone, right? So this is where like guys, tight end targets are not made equal because the tight end position is god awful, right? But if you want to hear me, you want to win some fantasy leagues on some advice, right? The idea here is when you're picking a tight end and they all project like absolute shit, right? Find winning paths, right? And have looked at the season and the history and the flow of the offense to find that for you, right? That's why Jonnu went from like not a thing to me to like, look, those were multiple red zone looks the other week. You don't look at a guy in the red zone multiple times unless you plan on also doing it again multiple times. Like you don't lose trust in a multiple red zone looked player overnight. Well, that doesn't happen, right?
Standing wide open at the 40-yard line helps a little bit too.
Yeah. And he showed something too. Disley went from like, I'm not sure to, you know what? No, I'll be the first person to say I could have been on him a week earlier. I stayed by my process, but I won't be a week late on Disley. He's just a flag plant in that offense in many, many ways, right? And he has more of a stable situation there. But these are just examples of why some players are out, some players are in, and Schultz does not fit the criteria. And my God, I've seen it from all these questionable tight ends we've mentioned. I've seen some semblance of the outcome I'm projecting this season. If you're projecting Schultz better than any of the players I mentioned, you have not seen it yet. So you're taking a bigger leap of faith.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm not playing Schultz. I'm not playing Westbrook-Akine. I'm not playing Mechie. So I'll be honest, this game is very straightforward. If you have Pollard, you're playing him. If you got Mixon, Nico, or Tank, you're playing him. That's it. Let's move on. Let's move on to the Super Bowl bandwagon favorites. The Detroit Lions at 9-1 travel to the Indianapolis Colts as 8-point favorites in a 50.5 over-under on the week. Sam Laporta off the injury report looks like he's going to play. Michael Pittman looks like he's going to play. I feel like we say this every week about the Lions, but start them all, baby. You're starting Goff, you're starting Monty, you're starting Gibbs, you're starting Amon-Ra, you're starting I think you have to we talk about this all the time. I think you have to start Laporta, don't you? You drafted him to be your number one tight end. I know it, you and I talked about it 100 times.
There are two
instances
instances where you're not. There's 2 instances. One of them is not a thing this week. You will start K-Dotton over him because too damn hot. Too damn hot. No other options.
Hotton.
The
dad joke had to get a dad joke in there.
Damn.
It only took 39 minutes. It only took 39 minutes for a dad joke, but there we go.
I think we extra drink tonight, baby.
I think we just lost like 6 I think we just got 6 unsubscribes because of that.
Immediately
they're like, nope, goodbye. Fuck that.
It would feel so good though. Like you would know you've made it as a dad if you can lose 6 subscriptions in one joke alone.
That'd be great.
That's dad power right there.
Let's go.
Yeah, man. I
so Cade
Otton, and the other one I was going to mention, it's not a thing this week. That would be Taysom Hill, but he's not a thing on bye this week. Other than that, it is you got to play him. They have looked at him in the red zone. That's one of those like if sometimes you get unlucky. He's a player that's on the unlucky side. They've schemed him open for red zone looks that haven't materialized, but they've been there. I'll take unmaterialized red zone looks over red zone looks that overrate a player that's just not there for me. So that's why Laporta still makes it in for me. You see how many points they scored last week? Like, Jesus,
No,
like,
yeah,
I'm in.
Everybody.
How many
got something
quarterbacks
last
are
week.
throwing 4 touchdowns a game
Yeah.
outside of this offense? Like, in the tight end is usually
the
tied
running back
to
still had
offensive
stuff.
touchdown production.
Yeah, it's wild. So let's flip it because look, you're starting the Lions. I don't think there's anyone on the Lions you're not starting, but I want to start with Michael Pittman because he's been worse than he's normally been. He's never been a touchdown guy. We know that, right? And I think we've finally seen a shift in the market where the Michael Pittman getting steamed up into the fourth and third round of fantasy drafts has come down, right? So my question is, with Anthony Richardson having a good week last week, is that an outlier for Richardson? Because we've been downgrading Colts pass catchers when Richardson's been in there, and we've been more apt to start them when Flacco's behind center. I personally have Pittman at 37, so I have him just outside of a start this week in 3 wide receiver leagues. But at 37 in a 2 wide receiver league, especially in a PPR format, that means I have him as a flex consideration. So we're going to spend a couple minutes on A-Rich in a minute, but let's start with Pittman. Are you comfortable starting him in a 3 wide receiver league this week?
No, I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's the bipocalypse. There are rosters. I'll be the first person to admit I have to play him in some rosters. I do, but it's only the rosters where I'm RB heavy in a 3 wide receiver league. That's the only reason I'm starting Pittman in those leagues. That's real talk, real life. That's why he's in there. Tank Dell, I don't love, but I'm starting him over Pittman. Pittman is he's such a low end flex play for me where there's just no upside. I'd like A-Rich a little more as a start. I mean, he has upside in the areas where I think he does not. His upside can just be his rushing production and his touchdowns in the red zone, but he can drag everyone else like fully down with him in a hyperbolic way. And I just don't think Pittman's there. And I think he's also just he's just kind of playing injured and not 100%. Like maybe I'm crazy, but it's the NFL. 98% is just not good enough in fantasy. Like we don't start wide receiver 3s in fantasy last time I checked, right? Like we only start the best on each offense. We just don't start everybody. Like we don't all play and start 14 leagues, right? It's the nature of fantasy. And Pittman's kind of hurt. He's kind of injured. He kind of needs surgery. The season's kind of lost. You think he's randomly going to get better this season? Randomly show you a good game out of nowhere? Like that's nowhere in the state of outcomes. And for me, most of my days on fantasy, I'm trying to pick between guys I already think have a chance at having a good game, and from there I'm trying to deduce it. If my ceiling is I hate this, I understand it's bipocalypse, but I'll find something else to like. That's my point with Pittman. Find another way, is my opinion. Yeah,
I'm out on Pittman this week. That's why I have him at 37. I get it. Some people might be forced to play him, but I think it's JT and it's Downs. I have Anthony Richardson at 13. The one thing I will say is this. There is still no Aiden Hutchinson, so that does give me a little bit of hope that when, not if, but when the Colts are losing this game and they need to catch up, maybe Richardson scrambles for 5 to 7 yards in the red zone and gets you an extra touchdown. Like you said, his rushing upside is what gives him that ceiling.
Yeah.
But I just don't.
It needs to be a 1 touchdown game though. I think the challenge is A-Rich loses a lot of value,
and it's not going to be a 2 touchdown
game. I think if Goff kills it, that's where Downs. That's the only shot Pittman has, right? It's a 2 touchdown game, and a bunch of people get 40-yard catches. But I think most of the time, you need it to be a 1 touchdown game, and Downs has a big one.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to Miami, where it's nice and warm.
This is a fun one, right?
The New England Patriots, 3-8. Will travel to the Miami Dolphins at 4-6 in a divisional matchup. Dolphins coming into this one 7.5-point home favorites, 45.5 on the total for the over/under. You are starting Tyreek. You're starting Achane. I think Jonnu's a must start this week. I don't think we need to talk about him. We just kind of did a little bit earlier. So I think he's a must start this week. I'm just checking my own rankings. I thought I had him at 8. I have him at 8. There you go. So he's a start for me. But let's talk about Jalen Waddle. Let's start there because I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. Waddle was 1 catch for -4 yards, a fumble, and a touchdown, right? Like, I mean, like it was the most ridiculous stat line in the world. So where are you with Waddle this week? Is he a startable player? Is he a flex player? Because the consistency's been and the volume has been atrocious.
No, he's not. He's outside of my flex range. Look, in a lot of calculators and maybe even my rankings, he's the type of player that will creep into like 36 to 44 territory, but he's the least startable player in that range. Okay, like he's impossible to start there because here's the thing, like the offense does not make sense for him. Okay, Tua is taking low ADOT, high percentage, scared, gutless football stuff where HN in an unwinnable game, I guess, gets like 8 targets. Like they're not playing with the same type of playbook they would if the season mattered. Maybe they can ease themselves into it, and I hope they do because God, they need to. But if they don't, it's not conducive to these sort of like routes where Waddle has the chance to yak and break away. It's just not that stuff's only going to Tyreek. Waddle as like a pure second read and what he's being in those outlets, it's just not good enough for his production. And the offense is doing this like slow, methodical, slow the game down thing that it doesn't even present with a lot of upside in many cases. So like, I'm just not there. Waddle firmly falls into the like, fine, he blows up, I'll gladly be wrong. But like up until now, I've been on the offense fundamentally looks a certain way. I think that's a stickier statistic than individual player statistics. Yeah. That's my theory, right? When an offense looks like shit, it takes more than a random game for them to not look like shit to a certain degree. And that's why these players aren't going to rebound out of nowhere. And so Waddle's off my board.
Yeah, I have Waddle at 30. I have him kind of sandwiched in between those Bears we talked about earlier. I had him just a couple spots ahead of Jerry Jeudy, who had a big night last night. But we don't get this thing perfect every week, right? Like we don't have a crystal ball. But again, I think Waddle is not someone that I'm even going to flex this week. The Patriots are still a team that takes away what you do best, and they've shown this season that they've held high-scoring offenses to lower point projection totals than they should have.
You run in the Patriots at this point. It's where you run. And like Mostert might even have a decent game. Achane should run all over him. I don't see a world where they need to pass the ball 30 times.
So I don't either. So let's flip to the other side of the ball. I have Hunter Henry as a must start, and I think you have to start Stevenson just because, again, we've said it every time, like the landscape says you have to. The Dolphins defense isn't good, so I think you can start him and hopefully he falls in the end zone. But I do want to talk about Drake May for a minute because he's been good on a bad team. He's been serviceable. So where are you with Drake May this week?
He's so close to being a low-end QB1. And with his rushing upside, like in a 4-point passing touchdown format, any quarterback with rushing upside has top 5 upside, just like fundamentally because of how the scoring system works, right? So in that format, he can never be worse than a high-end QB2, low-end QB1, right? Just like by definition of what he does, right? He's not there for me yet. He's still a super flex option because his passing options, like the amount of times he passes for 300 yards are just so rare given his options, right? Like they typically need to stay close, keep it close. Like he just caps out early. Like it's hard for him to have a high touchdown, high yardage. It's just not how that offense wants to play. If that offense is working, you're telling me that the thing that was working was, man, they're just passing 14 yards every play. Like, no, that's not how the Patriots offense works.
Right.
If that offense ever works, it's because Stevenson is averaging 5.6 a carry. And they get a bunch of first downs through 6-yard passes. not through 16-yard passes, right? So that high-end range doesn't really exist, even though Drake May brings an element that does lead to first downs, moving the chains, longer drives. Maybe their over-under all of a sudden isn't in the mid-30s like it was all of last year, if you can remember how disgusting those over-unders were, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're not that bad, right? Their offense can do things. The over-under here is, 45.5, I think I heard you say, right? That's not necessarily a Patriot score, right? So he's bringing some life there. There's some things happening. There's a reason that we're mentioning Drake May and not a wide receiver, right? That's my point.
Yeah. So I have him at 14 this week, 15 this week. So just outside of my single quarterback startable. But let me ask you, because you mentioned Superflex. Let's say you have Gino Smith, Jordan Love, Anthony Richardson, and Drake May asking for a friend. Pick two.
What was the other? Gino Smith and what was the other?
Smith, Love, Richardson, May.
Smith, Love,
Superflex. 4 point.
Smith,
Smith at home against Arizona, Love at home against the Niners, Richardson at home against Detroit, May on the road at Miami.
I think I'm taking Jordan Love because I respect the fact that he's the only guy in the group that can pass for 4 touchdowns.
Yep.
You got to put some respect on a dude who's that talented that can put up 4. After that, though, I think the real question is, I think I like Gino because I feel like even in Gino's bad games, they were bad because he threw for 250 and 1 instead of 250 and 3. That's not an actual bad game according to real quarterbacks. Their offense has no reason for me to think it should be bad. It should be pretty good regardless of the matchup. They can run, they can pass. They have the talent everywhere. Yep. He has the combination of floor ceiling that I think you want. I like Gino there.
Well, it's good because that's how this quote-unquote friend of mine has his lineup set already. So there you go.
Your friend's smart, man. He listens to the show.
He must listen to a show somewhere. I must take in some content. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 4-point favorites on the road as a 4-6 team, headed to the Big Apple to take on the Tommy Cutlets DeVito-led New York Football Giants at a whopping 2-8. The over-under in this game is 42.5 points. Look, I saw Todd Bowles' comments today. His comment is very simple. We're going to let Mike Evans play as long as he feels good. So to me, that says Mike Evans is in there. I have Mike Evans as a must start. I don't see a way where you can't start him. If you're, you cannot be worried about this injury. If Bowles says he's playing and he was targeting a Week 12 return and it's Week 12, put Mike Evans in your lineup and move on. Cade Houghton is in your lineup. Rashad White is in your lineup. I just want to ask you 2 questions, and then we unfortunately have to talk about the Giants side of the ball.
All right, 30-second take on them.
Because Mike Evans is in your lineup and because Otton is in your lineup, does that eliminate now the need for Sterling Shepard and McMillan?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I love McMillan for Dynasty.
Sure.
Like, he checks a big box for me in that, like, he played college ball up against, like, some super baddies, right? And he held his own. So, like, that tells me he can hold his own at this level, but, like, give him a little more time. Like, I want to throw him away after what he showed, but, like, give him time. Trust me, he's a better prospect than, like, he's up there with Polk for me, who I'm not throwing away yet. So, like, just keep that for what it is. But no, I'm not there yet, man. Like, Baker, he's got real running backs that can do some things over those wide receivers, and they're clearly going to use them. They're going to use White and they're going to use Bucky over those wide receivers. And you can just see that in the usage. So yeah.
And I have them 21 and 22, Bucky and White, respectively, in my rankings this week. So you can start both of them because of the bipocalypse. You should start
both, man. They have they should both catch 6 balls for real.
Yeah, they'll be fine. So let's look. We have to talk about it. It's ugly. It's disgusting. But people need to make these decisions, and this is what we're dealing with. And I'm part of this group. Let's pause for just 1 second before we talk about the Giants, because we need to say this, and I forgot to say this, which is I'm glad we put it in the notes. Vita Vea is a run stuffer. The Bucs defense is a run stopping defense. They are a pass funnel defense. It is a very good run defense. So I say that to ask you this. How do you have Neighbors this week? Because it's Tommy DeVito. It's a good run defense. Like, it's a home game for the Giants. Like, what is your outlook on Neighbors?
I think Neighbors has 14 targets. And is
well, I hope
the
as a Neighbors owner, I hope so.
3 wide receiver on the week.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it goes for about 1 over under. I think the real line's about 107.
Wow.
He's going to have a game.
Okay. I have him at wide receiver 12. So I'm not
QBs that come in out of nowhere have just a stupid first read target percentage. And he's a guy that I don't care if Pat Surtain's on you. It doesn't really matter who it is. You're too damn athletic to not get open on all the short yardage stuff. And on the long yardage stuff, you just might be a better athlete sometimes with a quarterback that has nothing to lose. So it's these spots, the quarterbacks that have nothing to lose, like sometimes you can project them for actual nothing, but it's not a good enough defense for that. It's not a good enough defense to really like make this quarterback see ghosts. And it's the right type of wide receiver that like I'm kind of in. Yeah. I think Neighbors
all right,
might.
So let me give you some names here since we're talking quarterbacks. All right.
Okay.
So Kendall has I have Neighbors as a start.
I'll say this. Old Tommy DeVito, I bet you. I tell you, I bet you. I would put him on the right side of the top 20 fantasy quarterbacks this week. I think he finishes 18, 19 more than he finishes.
I have him at 20. I have him at 20. So
yeah, he's there, man. Like you're projecting him. I'm telling you, he's right there.
Neighbors I have is 12. Right there. I don't know that I'm going to take the 107 higher. I'm not going to take that. You can take that. You're risking a little bit more than I am.
Dude, when he puts up 120, aren't you going to be like,
I'm going to be mad.
Yeah,
you know what I'm going to remember?
Of course, he had a 10-8 out on 12 targets.
You know what I'm going to remember when Malik Neighbors has 112 yards? You know what I'm going to be thinking about? That I traded him to you for 3 first-round picks. That's what I'm going to be thinking about.
Like only 3?
I think there was some more in that deal. I don't remember what I got else, but I just remember the 3 first-rounders that came with him. So
you know how many catches he has to have before you're not like 3 first round. Basically, I have like 3 BTJs just in my wallet, rolled up, ready to go for his one Giants wide receiver. I wouldn't even call him Neighbors because as long as he's on the Giants, he's a Giants wide receiver that I got 3 first round picks for. So what is this kid? That's how I feel right now.
I feel great about the trade. I'm not
dude, if he wasn't 20 years old, if he was literally 21, I don't think I could do it. But he's just such a kid. I don't know. Maybe that was suicide, dude.
So let me give you some names because I have DeVito at 20.
We're gonna have to redo the Dynasty show, man. Now you got me there. Why can't we mention the other league where I have like 10 first round picks?
Well, because then we'd be here all night. DeVito or Will Levis? DeVito or Caleb?
Oh, Caleb, come on now.
DeVito or
Caleb's not that bad. Are we really doing that with Caleb now?
No, I'm going up because if I go down, the names is going to be DeVito, right? DeVito Minshew, DeVito Young, DeVito.
No, that's fair. You know where I'm at,
so
man.
I got to go up.
I wasn't, as a Bears fan, even I wasn't expecting that yet.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at my rankings, right? I have Levis at 22, Jameis Winston, who played last night at 21, DeVito at 20, and Russ, who played last night at 19. So then my next number is Caleb at 18 because Sam Darnold or DeVito.
Sam
Darnold.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, so that's why I gave you Caleb because like I think I have DeVito ranked right where he should be.
Oh man, you might be fair on that one.
I think I have him exactly
it is
where he should
Caleb
be.
in that comparison, but like you might be right there though.
Right. So like I see a path where DeVito, what was Jameis last night? I don't remember. I can look it up real quick.
It wasn't great.
It wasn't but that game environment was crazy. So Jameis,
I'm saying his game environment is going to hurt his QB ranking, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah, if it
doesn't
snow,
as much as
it doesn't snow, it would have been fine. 18 for 27, 219, no touchdowns. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk really quickly about Tyrone Tracy. I think the challenge with Tyrone Tracy is you have to play him because of the Bipocalypse and because he's good. Are you just maybe lowering his ceiling this week because of the Bucs and Vita Vea and the run stuff defense? Or are you just saying, screw it, I believe in the talent of Tracy and all he needs is to break one off to really push his fantasy day, because he'll get the volume.
Yeah, no, the latter. With a guy like Tracy, looking at like Dude, he has enough volume to break the big one. I don't worry so much about the efficiency. That's like one of those, like, you're looking at the wrong metrics. The metrics are like, with enough touches, something gonna happen. And I'm more in on him. I think I would take him over the metrics. That's actually how I found like my value bets. My bets say like historical betting patterns are what weigh into numbers a lot, and numbers say like most running backs don't do this. Most running backs of this situation don't do this. And sometimes you can just look at a guy and be like, yeah, but when he does, he doesn't break off for 6 or 7. He breaks off for 20. Like when he gets there, he really gets there. When he doesn't get there, he misses by a little. So it's like the bet you win by a lot or lose by a little is how you can kind of find an edge. That's why I like a guy like Tyrone Tracy, because I think he outproduces his mean projection so much more in many cases.
I have him at 14. I have him as a high-end RB2 this week. So, All right. We're going to turn the timers on, boys and girls. We are going to spend a maximum of 3 minutes talking about this next game because it is disgusting.
I'm there.
The 3-7 Cowboys will leave their home state of Texas and travel to the division rival Washington Commanders, who are 7-4, 9.5 point favorites, 44.5. Jake Ferguson has been ruled out, which means I think because of the tight end landscape, you are starting Luke Schoonmaker.
Yep.
You're starting Brian Robinson Jr. You're starting Jaden Daniels. I don't think you have a choice, even with Cooper Rush. I think you have to start CeeDee Lamb. And you're starting
12
Scary
targets
Terry.
is 12 targets. Don't
Right.
get cute.
And you're starting Scary Terry. So I only want to talk about 2 players in this game because I think you're sitting everyone else and potentially even these 2. But they're running backs, and it's the Bipocalypse, by Mageddon, by NATO. And we told you that we would give you all some analysis on running backs because people are going to be facing these questions. Let's start with Austin Eckler. Can you, if you are in a pinch, the answer is obviously yes. But if you are a team who somehow has running backs available this week, are you starting or flexing Austin Eckler?
Yeah, I am. Offensive identity argument. Good game, bad game. The offense seems like it operates under like Jaden is comfortable doing his low ADOT stuff, and part of that stuff is Eckler on the wheel route situations. It's just like, it's not game script. It's what they like doing. So unless you think they're going to drastically change what they like doing in comfortable situations, which I would bet against, like Eckler doesn't have to have 6 catches on 7 targets like he did at like halftime in this game. He doesn't have to, but like I'm generally just going to take that if that's how the offense wants to operate. It tells me that good or bad game script, he's going to get enough targets and be good with them that I'm going to start him.
And let's go the other side of the ball. Rico Dowdle. I have Eckler at 25 and Dowdle at 26. So they are just
that's how I am. Like if anything, like
RB2s.
I have Eckler ranked a certain way, but I think he'd finish higher. I think Dowdle I have ranked lower, but I think Dowdle can finish a hell of a lot lower than where he's ranked. So it's like a range of
Dowdle
outcomes.
has the volume.
He's got volume, but I don't think he does much with it. And if anything, like he gets the benefit out. Like he's getting like half a touchdown higher or lower because he's guaranteed 13 touches. But honestly, I don't think he falls in the end zone. Do you? You know, I don't got faith in that.
No.
So like, yeah, I'm shading far against him.
Okay. We are at our 3-minute time limits. So I think if you are in a pinch, you start Eckler and you start Dowdle. If you somehow can avoid it, I would. I don't like the game environment. I can't have Cowboys on the field right now unless it's CD. It just can't. It's unwatchable. The Denver Broncos at 6-5, who have been, I think, the most improved football team this season, are traveling to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders, divisional matchup, the 2-8 Raiders. Broncos are 4.5 point favorites in this game. I think you're starting Knicks. You're starting Knicks. You are starting Cortland Sutton. I was trying to see. I have Knicks at 7, so you're definitely starting him. You are starting Brock Bowers, of course, and you're starting Jacoby Myers. Kendall, I'm going to ask you this really quickly because I don't want to spend time on this because there's other games I want to spend more time on. Is there anybody outside of those 4 players that we even need to talk about? The running backs in Denver, right? That's who we have to talk about for a couple of minutes. I mean, I don't want any part of Amir Abdullah. I don't want any part of Dylan Laube, whatever. There's just nothing there. So, and outside of Nix and Sutton on the Denver side of the ball, there's not much. So why don't we talk about Estime and Javonte and Jaleel McLaughlin? Because again, by apocalypse, people need the answers to these questions.
Jaleel falls out now that there's a 2 running back conversation.
I agree.
We definitively said Jaleel was, guys, we were right process wise. Jaleel fell out into the number 3 argument. We were right to draft him. We're now right to drop him. So let's just get him out of there. He's no longer relevant. It looks like it was more of a Javonte, hey man, you better be the homie or you'll take a job. And Javonte said, no, I'm the guy. And he showed his trustworthiness. Like, it tells me, like, hey, it's really a thing there. Like, any Estime themed game would lead me to a significantly more confident spot. That being said, I thought the Estime game was a weird one anyways. I was already back on Javonte the next week, and I said, be careful of Estime. Anyone who was in Q&A definitely heard that for sure. It was be careful. This random stuff by Estime could easily be a coaching ploy to make Javonte the 6th man. Like, let's go, pick it up. The running is how we, if the running game is going to be how we win the playoffs, like, Javonte, you need to be a killer. And I think that was a good play by the coach. Like, I saw a lot of, like, there was like a Coach Carter type of, like, I'll sit my starter if it makes him a better player. We ain't winning shit unless Javonte is great, not good. If he's just good, what are we doing? So I could be over projecting there, but damn, do I hope that's the case, because I think it's hell of coaching. It's really nice coaching if that's what happened, because Javonte looked like he played with a lot more urgency after that happened.
Yeah.
Like, Javonte looked like he had something up his ass. So, like, I was kind of into it. But look, to your point, there's a low ceiling for both of them, and we already knew that.
That's the key. That's the key, right? Like, I have Javonte at 27. I have Audric Estime at 30.
They're relevant because it's by apocalypse, but you're looking for other options starting next week. And if he's your RB2, you had no other options to begin with. And so we're not really answering questions, are we?
Yeah, like, I wouldn't go there. I understand it's by apocalypse, but, like, I would go and take your shot on Raheem Mostert. You know what I mean?
Over
like, I would,
Javonte?
yeah, I mean, I would just simply be like, I have Raheem Mostert ranked lower than him, but I just don't, like, at least we've seen Raheem Mostert fall in the end zone a couple. I don't know, man. It doesn't give me any confidence at all that, you know, the coaching change or sitting it. Now, they sat him against KC, one carry for 1 yard, right? But, like, I just don't trust that even in a bipocalypse, when I've got to get a running back on the field, that I'm going to get, without touchdowns, that I'm going to get more than 6 points, 5 points.
I'll be the first person to say, in a negative matchup, Javonte is, like, not the answer. I have to admit, against the 2-8 Raiders that have a good pass rush,
That's the only thing.
It does feel like the Broncos should win with the run, and Javonte should be decent in a run-first approach, where Estime gets involved, but, like, he's no worse than Najee typically is. And that's where, like, I'm like, in this match against a 2-8 Raiders who have nothing to play for, I'm just going to start the running backs in the run first team. And the rest of season take on Javonte is totally valid. But in the bipocalypse, I'll put it this way. If Swift on the struggling Bears offense is still a start for me, I don't know how I'm not starting Javonte in a significantly better matchup.
Yeah.
But I'm also saying rest of season, there's a difference between Swift rest of season and Javonte. This is a remember the matchup during the bipocalypse, because remember when you have options, I'm going to remember how I really felt about you, Javonte. This week I feel different.
I would start either of the running backs we just talked about in the last matchup. I would start Eckler or Dowdle over Javonte. I have him ranked 26, 27, 28.
I would too. I think most people would, though. I think the idea behind Javonte is, you know, let's see what chat says, right? Like, later on, chat, give us your most disgusting Javonte takes, and we'll see if our rankings can hold up to it.
No, please don't do that.
Well, do it to Phil. I'm not going to do it, but I want to see Phil do it, because you're playing the game. You make me play the games, all right?
I know. That's true.
I enjoy your games, but as a sycophant over here.
I know. My San Francisco 49ers will leave the comfort of Levi's Stadium and will travel to the frigid north.
Is it comfy there? Do you like
Central? Where do they live? I don't know. Wherever that state is located in there in Wisconsin. No, I'm kidding. They will go to the 5-5 Niners will go to the 7-3 Packers, and the Niners will go without Brock Purdy. So, folks, let's fire up Brandon Allen. For those of you that don't know who Brandon Allen is, he has been the quarterback for the Cowboys, the Bengals. He's a journeyman. George Kittle's hamstring seems to be okay. Josh Jacobs seems to be okay. Brock Purdy has been already ruled out. Trent Williams and Nick Bosa did not practice. Have not practiced this week. I think I saw Nick Bosa has already been ruled out, and Williams is questionable. So
what the hell, dude? You're a 49ers fan, right? Can you talk me through this? Because I'm in a weird spot. Chat, I need you to understand this. I am overexposed to the 49ers offense, and I can't tell how much of it is because I was overexposed to Phil in the offseason. We did so many drafts together and so much content that I became like tied to the 49ers. So I drafted a ridiculous amount of Ricky Pearsall. I have all of the Niners shares, and I've traded for Purdy in 3 leagues. And then some shit like this happens, and I don't know how to think. So Phil, you got to talk me through this.
I think it's fine. I think it's a 1 week thing, personally. I think this is a 1 week. We're just going to sit you this week because we believe that we can still somehow make the playoffs. I forgot to change the banner here. Sorry, really quickly. Look, I think this is, look, you're starting CMC, you're starting Kittle, you're starting Love, you're starting Jacobs, you're starting Reed in this game. My question now is, I had Debo as a must start when we did the show sheet early this morning, and then a couple of hours ago, Brock Purdy gets ruled out. So I think the Niners lose this game. I think if they win the game, CMC's got to be that dude. He's got to be RB1. That's how they win it, because I don't see Brandon Allen going out there and fucking slinging it. It's not going to happen. Right? It's not going to happen. So I just don't know now what to do with Debo. Like, Debo was a must start for me. I have to adjust my rankings, but he was 23 in my rankings.
He wasn't high already.
Right. So I'm saying, like, in a 2 wide receiver, start 2 receiver league, he's probably now flex worthy instead of a start. In a 3 receiver league, you're still playing him, but I'll go back. I'll use my own team as an example. Lad McConkey, Tank Dell, AJ Brown, who's my obvious start, Debo, and JSN. I'm starting AJ Brown. I'm starting McConkey, and I think I'm going to start JSN in that league. And then I'll take a look at my flex options, just see what it is. I'm probably still going to have Debo in the lineup simply because I don't think I have the bodies to put him on the bench. In fact, I can pull that league and tell you. I have James Conner and Josh Jacobs. I do have Rashad White and Debo Samuel in my flex spots right now with Brown, JSN, and McConkey. So, but I've got Bijan on a bye. I've got Brian Thomas on a bye. I've got T. Higgins on a bye. I've got Dalton Kincaid ruled out. So I had to waiver wire Dallas Goedert. So it's really Tank Dell or Debo Samuel. I would play Debo over Tank because, again, with Brandon Allen, Debo could get some carries in the backfield. McCaffrey's not fully healthy. Allen could throw some short targets, but I think this means that anybody not named McCaffrey, Kittle, I mean, I know people want to start Juwan Jennings. I don't see how you can with I almost called him Braylon Allen.
Man, that's probably your biggest
Brandon Allen there.
Man, all the people who traded for Juwan Jennings as like a league-winning savior are like, oh Jesus, oops, that might not be the case no more.
I pulled an offer today as soon as I saw that. I had a dynasty offer out for Jennings. Is that exact reason? Rest of season, I was like, I'll go give a late second. I'm already in the playoffs anyway. Like, it'll be a late set. Could be the 112, 111, right? Or sorry, 212, 211. And I went to go see it. I was like, please tell me this guy didn't accept it. And as soon as I saw the news on Purdy, I was like, nope, give me that offer. I'll keep my second. So
yeah, it's close, right? Like, I'm happy to do it otherwise. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not even mad about it, right? But
yeah, I think that Debo's still flex worthy this week. I would flex him. I think the bigger question is going to be around Trent Williams. If Trent is out this week, does that, again, I hate doing this, but like, I don't know that we're going to win the game. I'm having a hard time now with these injuries and with no quarterback seeing a path.
You guys are getting pretty banged up.
If we were playing, no offense, But like if we were playing the Panthers, sure. The Raiders, sure. No problem. The Dolphins, the Titans, sure. But you're playing the Packers. You're playing a team that is going to be there in the playoffs. And that's, yeah. So, all right. Is there anyone else you want to talk about, or can we move on to the other half of my division here? The Arizona Cardinals are going to go to Seattle.
Let's go.
And they're going to tie. They're going to tie the game. Because the
I bet you'd love that.
Because then I would love that. I would love that's what's going to happen. The game will end in a tie. It will be the first tie in this regular NFL season here in 2024. Man.
Field goal kicking will keep on.
No, they can score touchdowns. Let's get some points for the fantasy players, but they can just end the physical, the real football game in a tie because that would help the Niners. So you're starting James Conner. You're starting Trey McBride. You are starting KW3. You are starting DK Metcalf, and you are starting old Jackson Smith Jigba, Mr. JSN. Let's talk about some quarterbacks, Kendall. Let's talk about the shorter of the two quarterbacks. That would be Mr. Kyler Murray. How do you see Kyler's outlook this week? I have him at 6 in this game, so I have him as a must start. But is this a game that is maybe a bit of a kind of coming off the bye? Everyone's healthy. I know it's Seattle. Lumen Field is loud. But is this a game where Kyler kind of reestablishes some rhythm with MHJ and maybe runs around a little bit, or just kind of gets you there?
I'll tell you what, it's definitely a game I'm looking for that specifically. I'm looking for what is the connection with MHJ, right? What is the target share specifically? Like, what are those targets looking like? What's the short yardage versus longer yardage, target share looking like? Like, I'm actively looking at this as some games are scout games. Some games are actively don't watch it. Don't remember it. Don't look at the box score. It never happened, right? This is the opposite. This is, I need to know what happens here, right? Because I also want to know what to make of the Seahawks defense. How are they approachable? The Cardinals seem to have an offense that can choose what it wants to do. Like on paper, it should be decent through the air. McBride and MHJ is pretty formidable. It's not like league breaking, but it's formidable. And then Connor's just fantastic, and it's been really hard to stop him. Like, Connor has been the bright spot to their overall offense. He's been the stabilizing force, rain or shine. So I expect them to lean into Connor until it doesn't work. And it's like, how does the offense and the team respond if it doesn't work? And I got to be honest with you, I don't have a strong projection one way or the other. I just don't. I would rather not make a strong take on this game one way or the other when it comes to betting or exposure. And I will say I'm going to lean on this game as a litmus test for what I do rest of season with some much heavier weight than I would normally. If I had to pick, I'm leaning the Cardinals' run game should be good, and I think McBride is going to be fantastic. But I think because McBride's fantastic, I would maybe limit MHJ's projections. I think JSN is still very, very good. I like him quite a bit. That being said, the Seahawks all healthy all at once. How does it break down? I don't really know. So I can't give. This is one of those games I have not good confidence in giving advice, but I can say that because of the Bipocalypse, how they're going to perform, I'm not sure. But are you going to start all the main culprits? Hell yeah, right? I don't think there's many questionable situations. And if there are, I'm going to lean on people in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I have Marv at 21, so I have him as a low-end wide receiver 2. I have Trey McBride at 3, so I have him as the high-end tight end 1. And I have Connor at RB 10 this week, so a low-end RB 1. So I'm lowest on my rankings in terms of volume and where they fit in the 1-2 conversation on MHJ. But to me, it's like the only way outside of a busted, crazy big play to like Michael Wilson or Greg Dortch, something to that effect. I think the way that the Cardinals win this game is by leaning on their 3 big guys. And I do think if they're going to win this game, that's how they're going to win it. So I'm starting all 3. Obviously, I think the challenge is going to be like, if you are just so banged up at running back, can you take a shot with Trey Benson? I wouldn't.
I wouldn't. There are so many other options.
And that's what I mean. But like the reason I ask it is simply because like You're talking about the Zach Charbonnets of the world, right? You're talking about Austin Eckler's a bad example because he's kind of the 1B in an offense, right?
Charbonnet is way better than Benson in this matchup.
100%, right? But like I have Charbonnet and Benson back to back in my rankings this week with Mostert stacked right up in there. So I think the reason I'm bringing this up is because of the bipocalypse. People are looking at these RB2s and they're saying, okay, who is an RB2 that might just score me some points? You know what I mean? Like you're not going to go find whoever the fucking RB2 is in Dallas.
No, I mean it's a fair point.
Like I have Devin Singletary at 41. You're not like if you're
like
not the Tyrone Tracy owner.
Like Roshan is the highest guy I have ranked.
Roshan's a good name here,
lineup.
right?
Like I have Roshan over the handcuffs. Here, I think is worth asking. I have Cam Akers over Benson, over Charbonnet. I think Cam Akers has a legitimate shot at least being relevant. He did last week in a non-injury finishing situation. It's not far ahead of them, but I do have them ahead. So I hopefully that shows some relative strength in what I would do. From there, I think it's Charbonnet, then Benson. Charbonnet makes the cutoff for me where game script will get him 6 targets for 5 catches and is playable, where Benson in either game script I think is just too out of it for me.
It's too volatile.
Yeah, I would still start Charbonnet in like a dire situation and be like, all right, he can get 5-6 carries for 30 yards. He can also catch 3 passes for 30 yards, and he can just get me like a serviceable 7 or 8. And that's not 14 or 15, but damn, it's not 0.
And I think the reason I bring those names up is because we wouldn't be talking about them if this was last week when there was 2 teams on bye, right? So like we have to go this deep this week because of the amount of players that are on bye. And that's before we even talk about guys that Steelers played last night, the Browns played last night. Nobody had a good game in this. So you're already lower than your fantasy projection because you played those players. They didn't hit their projections, or you've got guys that are out, that are banged up, right? That aren't playing. So
let me ask you this then. If that's where it's going, let me throw this back at you. And you can feel free to throw back at me. Do you wait? And I'm sure the answer is probably it depends. So like if it's truly it depends, let me know. But let's assume that you don't know if you need to buy every single win. It's close though. Let's just say it's close where it's not guaranteed, but you might need to kind of think about winning almost every game to get in. Okay. Do you go with if the starter is injured, this player is way more valuable, and literally pick him up and plug him in because you have to, because you have 4 to 5 starters all on bye and they're all alphas. You can't drop a single player. So you have to basically play a player, and you're debating whether or not do I go based on PPG this week, or do I go based on overall range of outcomes? Who's more valuable potentially ROS if it's close? Does that make sense? Because that's where I could see maybe changing your answer between, I think there's a big 4 between like Jerome Ford, Roshan, Cam Akers, Trey Benson, and maybe Charbonnet. I call those a 5.
I mean, I'm still always going to default to who is going to actually, if the starter goes down, be able to get me real points based on talent. And I'll reference this to illustrate my own point. It's the Alexander Madison effect. It's the Miles Sanders effect. Alexander Madison and Miles Sanders were drafted in the 4th and 5th rounds last year for 2 reasons. Number 1, they were the presumed, and they were, starters for their team with no competition, remember, and they were going to get everything. It was volume, and we know volume is king. And 2, they were on teams where we expected that they were going to have to chase games, and they were also decent enough pass catchers that we had seen where they could get a little bit of extra work and a bump from pass catching. Here's the problem. We forgot that neither of them were that good. So I don't want to go and get Cam Akers in the assumption that Aaron Jones gets injured. Sorry, where did my brain just go blank? Yes.
No, you actually nailed that one, but I think your point's correct. Are you saying that like Cam Akers is not a great player? So
I don't think Cam Akers is a great
he's not
player.
very good. We're like, Charbonnet and Benson are actual kind of top prospects, and if they
I
were
mean,
to get the job, they have RB1 up.
Benson is we think Benson is a good prospect. We haven't seen it, right? I think next year.
I mean, I think we both can agree. Charbonnet is the best prospect.
Charbonnet is the best prospect because we've seen him produce actual fantasy relevant numbers when KW3 has been out. So that's who I want, right? Austin Eckler can produce solid fantasy numbers when Brian Robinson Jr. is out. There is only one. Correct. But I'm saying like those weeks that B-Rob missed, Eckler was on. What was it, two or three touchdowns?
20 points a game. I mean,
yeah, I mean it was crazy, right?
RB1 shit,
So there is only one Detroit Lions that has two run. There's only one team in the league where you can legitimately start both running backs, and both running backs can produce relatively equal numbers. There's only one team that can do that. So if I start to then take that look down the line of like, okay, what happens if, sorry, folks, I don't want to manifest this, but let's just say a certain running back in Baltimore is no longer available. Is Justice Hill really going to replicate what Derrick Henry can do? Absolutely not. But can he get you a third of that, 33% of that? Can he get you 25% of that? Probably. Is that moving the needle for me?
Maybe.
No, that's not. You're right. Exactly. Maybe not. That's not moving the needle for me. So that's how I look at it. And you know this because you and we talk football every week.
We're Dynasty guys.
Right. Yeah. And we do this all the time, all year round. But you and I are always looking for ceiling. I'm looking for upside. Right. I get it. You can't always go and trade for Jamar Chase. You can't always go and trade for Saquon Barkley. You get it. You can try. You can, right? But like my point is that you can't just go and fill your roster with, the ceiling players. Sometimes you're going to have to, no matter how good your team is. You and I were talking about it pre-show. I have to start Jonathan Brooks in a dynasty league this week because my two starting running backs are Bijan Robinson and James Cook. So I have no running backs. My backup running back, thankfully, is Jalen Warren, who had a monster night last night, and that's 25 points for me.
He was pretty big for him.
One of those funky leagues where I get a couple of bonuses. So in a full PPR, he got me 25 points. But my RB2 is Brooks because I do not have another running back on that roster.
You got a lot of Brooks and Benson, I think.
I do, but I'm just so top heavy receiver-wise on that particular roster. I always am on my teams, but on that roster. So no, you don't start Jonathan Brooks, but I don't want to take a 0. I'd rather get 2 points out of Brooks than 0. But that's where I'm at with some of these other guys. So 2 more games. We're getting there. We are going to get there. On Sunday Night Football this week, the 8-2 Philadelphia Eagles as 2.5-point road favorites will travel to Los Angeles, Ciudad de Angels, to play the Rams in a 47.5-point game. So Devonta Smith is not going to participate in football this week, which is a big bummer because we all love Devonta Smith.
Or maybe this season, because what the hell?
Yeah, maybe.
He was my I put in. Anyone in my dynasty leagues that are listening, you're not listening, but even if you were, I offered 2 first-round picks for him. Beginning of the season, I was so confident. He is my you should have taken the deal. We remain water though. Your problem. I was all in on him. I mean, he was one of my we're gonna have to do when we do our dynasty show. Someone has to walk me through how I was so wrong on what happened there. Because I also I'm kind of in on Saquon. So I'm curious. Because how can I be Saquon was I'm not kidding, one of those draft day I didn't talk to you guys, I didn't talk to the group chat, I didn't do a stream. It was just Saquon's gonna be really good this year. I can't shake it. I'm gonna do it. Happened to me the week of drafts, right? Which I feel a little guilty about because obviously that looks pretty good for me. But Devontae was one of those I didn't necessarily I got lucky fading him. I really thought straight up he was going to outscore A.J. Brown this year and just be the more useful fantasy play, be the more consistent fantasy play, be the high target a game guy if they weren't blowing people out in case their secondary was bad. And anyways, I don't know. Devonta Smith, one of my biggest misses this entire season. I regret it a little bit, but
sometimes it's just how sometimes it's just how it goes. This trade, right? I traded Devonta Smith a first and a second for Jamar Chase. I think I underpaid. I should not have got that deal done. I should have been countered by the person I was trading, offering all of that to, and I expected to be. And I don't remember what I started with, but that's what the counter came back as. And I was like, immediate, boom, smash. Like that's a done deal. No problems for me. And I'm a playoff team, so it's going to be a late first. Like I'm 8-2 in that league, or whatever my record is, 8-3, or whatever the hell the record is in that league. Whatever was it, week 12?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm 8-3 in that league. So we're fine, right? But we'll talk Dynasty another night. So Devonta Smith ruled out. I obviously you're starting Jalen Hurts, you're starting AJ Brown, you're starting Barkley, you are starting Puka, you are starting Kupp, you're starting Kyron. I think with the Devonta Smith news, Dallas Goedert becomes a must start this week. Do you agree?
He
on
might
that?
have already almost been by apocalypse. Like there's 12 tight ends starting in a 12-team league, right?
Yeah.
So who else is making it in over him? I think he was already in, if I'm being real. But of course, now he's like definitely in.
I have him at 9, so he was in there for me anyway.
Yeah, I'm
think,
with you. Like
I think
he does bump him higher in my hierarchy, but realistically, it was not changing a decision.
Yeah, so I think it's less of like, is he a must start, and more of like, I think his ceiling's a little higher now.
Yeah.
I think you think you've got a couple of extra targets.
He was
that may
do
go
I
his way.
flex him too because I have Kelsey type of a thing? Like, yeah,
Maybe.
I think you really think about it now.
Maybe it's possible. I'm doing that in a league right now, in a dynasty league. I'm flexing Hunter Henry as a secondary option, because I think my other options are like Sterling Shepard and like Darius Slayton, who I think's been questionable all week, and Tommy DeVito and all this stuff. So it's not what I want to do, but Trey McBride's my starter in that league, obviously, is my tight end. And I'm like, you know what? Hunter Henry, compared to some of these other receivers, if he gets me 5 targets for 50 yards and one of those targets happens to be a 4-yard touchdown.
Goddard's over like Andrews for me probably right now.
Goddard,
that's probably pretty close, but he is over Andrews for me. He's over Hawkinson, I think, this week. That's probably meaningful. I like that. That's kind of a meaningful one.
Yep. And I have him over Laporta.
Yeah. With his, I think that's fair too. It's same in my rankings too. So those are some guys, right? Hopefully they answer some questions, but for the most part, like, if you are screwed at tight end like the rest of us, and you can't pick him up because you just can't, you're probably starting Hunter Henry or something. You got to do what you got to do.
So I don't want to talk about Jahan Dotson because he's just not.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think it's Goddard. We've seen Devonta Smith miss games this season. We've seen AJ Brown miss games this season, and Jahan Dotson has not been relevant in those games. So I don't think he's a start, even with Devonta Smith out of this game. I actually really only want to talk about one player, and it's Matt Stafford. Where do you see Stafford this week? It's a home game. Philly's corners have been really good. Cooper DeJean, and I'm sorry, I forget the Toledo kid's name. Why is my brain going blank right now?
Christian?
No, someone in chat help me out here with the other cornerback. It's the kid from Toledo. He's Kenyon Mitchell. He's been very good. So I think for me, like, I have Stafford at 16. So I have him as a start in super flex, but not in single quarterback leagues. But I always do this with Stafford. I go back and forth on it because, there it is. Yeah, Mitchell, right? Kenyon Mitchell. Thank you, Walful, there in the chat, sir. Am I just wrong about Stafford? Is he going to have one of those vintage Matt Stafford games where one of two outcomes happens? Either the Rams win the game, which we've seen them win games they shouldn't win this season, or they're getting beat down by the Eagles and Stafford's got to throw. Like, I feel like Stafford at 16 is a good spot to have him. But am I wrong? That's my question about Matt Stafford.
I'm looking at my rankings, and I can't get him higher than 14 on a good day. I want to, but I think this is one of those. He sounds like a better name this week than he really is.
Okay.
Let me give you some names I have over him, and I think that's my answer to, like, I'll tell you why if you need to know too, right? Like, I got Drake May ahead of him, Tua, A-Rich, and Gino. Baker, I think that was already obvious, but like in case, right? Most of those names are already pretty obvious up there. Like, you take my weakest name, Drake May, is controversial, but it's like the way that Stafford passes himself out of the situation plays right into the Eagles' strengths. It doesn't need to happen. Like, I'll put it this way. I think this is a game that, like, the Eagles having a 20-point defensive effort is as equal as Stafford's 4-touchdown upside. Like, his upside comes with downside, and then he has to force it, and I just don't know if they can get it done there. The over-under is pretty sick. Like, it looks like something could happen. I don't deny that. In my mind, the range of outcomes here is pretty wide. What would surprise me is pretty wide, but
yeah,
I would play him over. Like, I don't love Tua against New England because I feel like that could just be the flattest nothing running back.
Or Tua could
QB.
play one game and throw an interception and go dive head first into this kid's knee.
Or
again.
like Jordan Love against San Fran feels like he doesn't
have
to pass for 4 touchdowns. Like, he could be good.
I can't. So I'm with you, right? Like, this is why
I like him over CJ. I guess, like, that's my, like, okay, fine. Stroud hasn't done shit. So fine. I'll take the guy that with 2 weapons that I like in a high over under. But I'm not putting Stafford, like, miraculously forward. I still like a lot of those options, like Baker, Bo Nix, and Gino. Or they're available in most of my leagues. So, like, at least for me, if anyone's going to ask, I'm like, I'm taking those options, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just look at, like, I have Richardson 13, Stroud 14, May 15, Stafford 16.
You just can't get him starting outside of Superflex, right?
The reason I have May ahead of him is because May runs and Stafford doesn't. So, like, okay, we could Monday morning quarterback this and go, how did we have Stafford when Richardson throws 4 picks and doesn't score a rushing touchdown? And on Monday, we're all like, why the hell did we not have Stafford ahead of him? Well, sure, we can Monday morning quarterback everything. But at the end of the day, the Colts are going to be losing that game. Richardson's going to have to either throw or run to get them back into it, even though I think they're going to lose no matter what. But he's going to have to try to get them back into it. Stroud, yeah, I just can't get Stafford high. It's a shame because I love Matt Stafford. I mean, he's just such a – he's like one of the only – he's
over Stroud, but I can't start him. That feels like a crazy sentence.
It's just like him and Rodgers. They're like the only two. You remember when like Tom Brady and like Peyton Manning and Roethlisberger and Rivers and Breeze, like the old guard? Rodgers and Stafford are like the only guys left of the old OGs. You know what I mean? Like, it's all young kids now, which is great. That's what the league's always going to become. The league's always going to get younger year after year. But all right, let's move on. It's not the Matt Stafford variety hour. We have made it to Monday Night Football. I'm very excited for this game. I don't know why I'm excited for this game, because on paper it doesn't look good. Like, the Chargers somehow are 7-3. They're at home. The Ravens are 2.5-point road favorites on Monday Night Football of Thanksgiving week. 47.5 is the over-under and the total in this one. I think this is going to be a good game. Justin Herbert has been good lately. Quentin Johnston is a player that we had all left for dead. We had left him for dead. And you're starting Jackson. You're starting Andrews. You're starting King Henry. You're starting Ladd McConkey. Let's start with the running backs on the Chargers side of the ball with Dobbins and Edwards. I know it's by apocalypse, so give me the Dobbins take and why he should or shouldn't be in your lineups this week.
He's still the goal line back. He had 2 touchdowns last week.
Yeah.
He's like a Nick Chubb. When he has a bad week, I think it's going to be bad. When it's good, at least he has like 3 to 4 catch upside, like where Gus doesn't take any of that. So like that stays the whole time. Plus he has the RB upside. So it's like, look, the team wins. They have a good defense that puts him in good position, and he's good in their good offense, and he gets the goal line work. So, like, how low can you rank a good running back and a good offense that's good at the goal line? Like, that's where he's like, he can never fall below 20 for me, but my God, can I not get him above 18 to 16? Like, it's impossible. He just doesn't have the upside, but I can't ever bench him. So, he's a savior in weeks like this where I'm like,
I need to move him.
He's the sure thing in my lineup. I like him. The Ravens have been worse at defense in general than I think we ever would have expected.
You can throw on the Ravens.
You can throw on the Ravens, but I mean, color me crazy, but like the Chargers they seem kind of like the Ravens in that like it just doesn't matter. Like no defense can stop them. But the Chargers offense isn't the Ravens, so people talk about
offense is good. They just more. The Chargers just aren't explosive. They don't have explosive plays.
Yeah, if you took
they'll score
every one of J.K. Dobbins' touchdowns and just made it a longer Ladd McConkey or other touchdown, everyone would talk about him. But because they fall
that's
down
it,
in
right?
between the 10 and then it takes them 3 tries to get into the end zone, everyone's like, oh, they're just a worse version of the Steelers. And it's
Unless you're playing the Bengals in under 2 minutes to go and Dobbins rips off a 37-yard touchdown.
The fact is they got some dogs on the team, dude. The Chargers might be really good. Like the Chargers, like they're a team that like if all of a sudden they're in the Super Bowl, most analysts are going to be like, it
wouldn't surprise me in 2 years if I mean, it's just the Chargers.
Coaching plus Herbert.
Ways.
Hey, guys, this was my least popular trade I did all off season, but I never lost faith that I think this was the long-term, like 2-year play. Okay, 2-year, and that I knew I was going to lose this trade this season, but it's the trade I'm most proud of. Sorry to whoever's in chat that's the unlucky participant, but you got to give me credit for this one, all right? I said Herbert is going to be a better long-term dynasty asset than Kyler Murray. For sure, I'm going to weigh the MHJ thing, but Herbert is simply put so damn good at football that by the time all the hype of the weapons dies down, we're going to look at him and be like, hey, remember all those quarterbacks that have a really talented arm but aren't a good quarterback? We're going to look at Herbert and be like, that's the difference. That's what a good arm in a good quarterback looks like. And we're going to remember that him not throwing 20 interceptions is a big fucking deal in the NFL. That's what we're seeing, and that's why they're 7-3 versus Rodgers is still pretty good at 2 and what? That's I can't give Herbert and that team enough credit, and I have
Herbert at 4 this week. I have him
just 50 rushing yards a game, and he's nimble again too.
Just behind Jared Goff. So I think you can start Herbert in one quarterback, obviously, by my rankings. You're obviously starting him in Superflex. I want to talk really quickly about QJ. And it's very, as you all know, it's very off-brand for me.
You, I suppose.
I'm the guy that believes that QJ and Xavier Worthy should be roommates, together, and they should go and get an apartment together and just talk about whatever it is they talk about. But look, QJ has been relevant lately. I have to thank him. I had him as an anytime touchdown on my parlay card, 6 for 6 on that one. So thank you for that. It was my most questionable line last week. Is he going to get an anytime touchdown? He has scored 3 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. His target share is fine. Like, it's inconsistent, but it's fine. But he's playing 80+% of the snaps. Is he startable this week for you?
Yeah. Any high over under where it looks like the Chargers can't just like J.K. Dobbins the game, I'm in. I'm in because it's like one of two things happens. One, it's crazy. I'm going to throw out something that no one's ever heard before. Good quarterback strategy. Sometimes they throw to whoever's open.
Sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they do.
There's very few good quarterbacks. It sucks, right? But here's the thing. When JSN, I would love for him to have JSN, but when Huge is open, he gets the ball, right? Yeah. There's a difference, though, and when he's not forced the ball. That's why Herbert doesn't have 20 turnovers. And that's look at the balls that have been thrown QJ's way, okay? I'm not there. I'm not there at anointing him a great wide receiver. I will give him credit. He's not dropped a lot of passes. And I think some of those throws, look, it was him versus the ground because the defender wasn't close enough. And can we give Herbert a little bit of credit for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say, what if those balls were thrown by anybody else? Herbert threw him some absolute gorgeous dimes in the end zone. Can we give Herbert most of the credit? QJ, let's just be real. We thought there was no way in hell he was catching that wide open pass, and we're impressed that he is. But let's leave it at that, okay?
Good job.
He did not make an OBJ catch. He did not do anything crazy. He used both of his God-given hands, and he needed both of them to still chest catch the football, okay?
Yeah,
so I'm going to take away most of that catch because it wasn't impressive. He was just open in the end zone. So, again, I like him because that offense is functioning well, but I don't project him ridiculously. That's why I think the bets for him are better if it's not catches and yardage. If it is the touchdown bets, those are the good ones because Herbert will find him when he's supposed to be open, but not when he's not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have QJ at 27 this week. So in a 2 wide receiver league, he's in consideration for your flex. In a 3 wide receiver league, he is a startable player. Again, 3 touchdowns in 3 weeks. I think he is a very high candidate to get another one this week because I think this is a game that they are going to be more competitive than people think. I do think it's a close game, and I think they're going to have to score because the Ravens should score. Zay Flowers is obviously a start. I want to talk about one final player, and then we are going to hit the Q&A. It is Isaiah Likely. I have him at 18. He was the darling to start the season. Andrews was, I don't know, missing in action. And then all of a sudden, Mark Andrews comes back and is catching multiple touchdown weeks, and Isaiah Likely sort of takes a back seat. Now Isaiah Likely sort of has reinserted himself into this, was the reason we're talking about him, right? So 75 catches. He did not have 75 catches. He had 75 yards last week. You can throw on the Chargers. It's the bipocalypse. It's the tight end market. Can you put Likely into a flex role? I have him at 18, so I don't have him as a start.
I don't either. I do have him as there's a desperation case, but
that's the question.
He's still very desperation. I would still start most wide receivers and running backs over him. Here's why. Okay. Here's the simple case, right? What we're basically projecting from like a bare bones offensive projection standpoint that can be sticky is that Deontay Johnson should be more involved. Not heavily, but more. And that absolutely, if there's one position that targets gets taken away from, I mean, it's tight end, but my God, is it definitely tight end too? Right? Like, if I increase any offensive projections of any kind, there's no way I can't, and I'm not supposed to take them away from the tight end too, right? Like, that's just logical. So if I'm already projecting, I'm not projecting a crazy increase, but like I am projecting that they should figure out and be looking to target their new acquisition at a minimum, right? They should figure out what they have and don't have early before the playoffs. So if there's ever a chance to increase the snap share and targets for a player, it's probably now for this guy. Bateman's gotten more involved. Flowers is still fantastic. It's just there's a lot of mouths combined with a good defense, combined with none of that has to go the way it's supposed to. So it's like it's a second tier player against a good defense. Yes, they have a worse pass defense, but still a good and overall like red zone efficiency probably makes up their weak pass defense, right? And I'm struggling to find an upside case for him where I would rather find a defensive matchup where I think that the tight end could be a more of a focal point, say like Hunter Henry for the Patriots, who really lack and have an ambiguous wide receiver core.
That's a good comp.
Where like I don't think the Ravens have an ambiguous wide receiver core. I think they have a wide receiver core that has never really been needed outside of Flowers to win games. And so it's shuffled around the same pie. And Likely is just there's not enough pie to give back to him in an average game script outside of a deep touchdown that I think brings him within relevance, where the downside is 2 targets, 1 catch, 12 yards. And that's downside that honestly isn't that bad considering most tight ends have a downside of 3 points. So what's 1 versus 3?
I just look at this. I go back to what we talked about earlier. The question you asked me about the backup running backs, the RB2s. I go back to ceiling, right? Like I have Bateman at 44 this week, and I'll just transparent with everybody. Once I get past 50, I stop ranking them because it's like we're not even going to worry. Like Deontay Johnson did not get ranked for me again this week. He's not in my rankings.
Yeah, he's outside of my top 60. So
I would have Isaiah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Isaiah Likely, I would play ahead of Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson. Here's what's going to happen. Deontay Johnson, when the Ravens are in the first round of the playoffs, assuming the Chiefs are the number 1 seed, Deontay Johnson's going to catch 1 12-yard touchdown that's going to win them the game, and everyone's going to be like, what a great trade. Deontay Johnson has done fuck all for fantasy. He has done nothing. Yeah.
Or he could have the Pacheco game. He could have the not Pacheco game, like Kareem Hunt's first game or something along those lines, where it's like the Juju game. First game back. 120 yards, for 120, and they lose their next game, but my God, was he a fucking hero for one game. That I could plausible exactly as hell.
All right. That's it. That's Monday Night Football. So let's do some questions. Let's get all the way back up to the top. And appreciate y'all being with us. It was a big, long show tonight. I know normally we do part 1 and part 2. We did it all. Drop us a super chat.
We're looking for the questions too, right? Like chat, please let us know any and all questions. Give us as much what your league setting is. What we would love to hear personally what you're thinking. Right. I don't know if this is a thing, but I notice in chat a lot of times it's, hey, just what do you guys think? We would love to hear what your baseline thinking is too. Like what philosophy, what basis you're kind of going off of. It's just intriguing for us to know like what you're thinking of too. But let's hit it. It's a bipocalypse. So if anything, I think we're really curious.
Let's do some questions. If y'all have want to shoot us a super chat, we will be sure to stop what we are doing and go ahead and get to your question immediately. But to start off, Armin would like to know if he should sit Debo for Disley and Otten. Purdy is out while McConkey is limited and Evans returns. Kendall, I will start with you. I already know my answer on this. I will start with you.
This is really close because Debo has so many ways to get involved and score. But Otten has proven it more often for me. It's not like an upside case. It's like I've seen it 3 times already. His usage is ridiculous. His red zone usage is ridiculous. He's what the team needs to score. It's rare that I see a position in a high volume, high red zone efficiency situation, which can almost only happen at elite tight end. And it actually trumps Debo's dual usage. So I actually take Otten over Debo here.
Interesting. I would still play Debo. There's ways for him to get involved. I like Otten, but I struggle with, can the Giants keep up in this game? And Mike Evans is back. And if he doesn't get the touchdowns,
it's a Purdy thing for me too. It's also, I expect the passing touchdowns to evaporate, where I think CMC is going to be utilized so much more heavily in the red zone, where I feel like Debo's touchdown upside goes to a level where it's just unfortunate for. I love the 49ers as a system, but when you take out their starting quarterback, it's hard for me to lean on. Like the head coach is a player for me, and like the algo for like how I look at their team, and I give them like bonus points for having a head coach with nuance to them. And when you take out the QB, I have to take out the head coaching influence too, and that just decreases their offensive efficiency. I guess that's just like where I'm at with it. Yeah,
sorry, Armin. I know that doesn't help you. We're a little split on this one, but I think we can both agree we would not put Disley in there. So at least that helps you a little bit.
That's fair.
We did this one earlier. Will Hayes, should I start? Excuse me. Who should I start at the flex spot? Javonte, J.K. Dobbins, Christian Watson, full PPR.
It's not Christian for you, is it? I think the too
Christian
many
Watson?
4-catch games. I can't do Christian.
No.
I guess
this one to me is easy.
I take JK pretty easily. It's just like JK versus Javonte. Like one is just a better version at the same position of the other, and then it's kind of easy from there.
Yep, I'm taking J.K. Dobbins here.
Yeah.
Roberto Perez, what up, y'all?
Hey.
Are you trading Ramondre Stevenson and AJ? I assume this is AJ Brown for Bijan and Amari Cooper.
Oh man. My initial thought is like, so if I'm never starting Amari Cooper ever, would I just do Stevenson and AJ for Bijan? I don't know that I would. Team dependent, but I guess I lean against it. You got to have a pretty crazy roster to not need Stevenson and AJB to just upgrade PPG for Bijan, right?
I am not doing this trade. As much as I love Bijan, Amari Cooper is not active right now. He's on a bye this week. AJ Brown's the focal point of that offense. Devonta Smith just went out. We assume it's a 1-week injury, but we don't know. It doesn't matter even if it's not, because AJ Brown is the focal point. I mean, Saquon, but like from a pass catching perspective, AJ Brown is the focal pass catcher there. I don't see enough of an upgrade for AJ Brown to be upgraded into Bijan, whereas I do see a drop off between Stevenson. I just can't get there.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that, like, man, if Amari Cooper was like Nico 2 weeks ago, this is like very doable, because when he is healthy, he is great, but I don't know what to do with Amari. So how can I trade for him? I can't project enough upside to get him there, right? I can see it feels like desperation for the sake of desperation if you do it. You don't need to do it unless you're desperate.
I mean, I guess the caveat to that is like you're getting a better running back, and running backs are so important in fantasy. But like at this point in the season, with really only 3 weeks, well, I guess this week counts. So with 4 weeks to go before the playoffs start, really 3 weeks if you're in bigger leagues and they have a 6-team or even a bye week playoff, like I just don't know that you're going to get enough of a higher ceiling from Bijan.
Yeah.
Whereas AJ Brown to Amari Cooper is a significant downgrade.
And dude, call me crazy, but like Stevenson has outscored Amari enough times this season to be like, dude, I can't live with myself if I do this trade and Stevenson beats Amari by like 2 PPG the week after you do it. Like I couldn't physically stand it.
Yeah. The other thing I would just say, this has nothing to do with this trade, but I always struggle with like for like, position for position trades, because it's like what I understand, like if it's a quarterback, it's different, right? Because like maybe you're going up at like a skill position to downgrade at a quarterback, because the quarterback variance isn't as much as the skill positions are, right? Like there was times like Tyreek Hill, not this season, but like Tyreek Hill can win you a week. Jamar Chase can win you a week. Sure, when Joe Burrow's throwing for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, that's QB1, overall QB1 on the week. But on the weeks when Jamar Chase still goes for 2 touchdowns and 120 yards and Burrow only throws for 248 and 2, that's middle of the pack QB1 numbers for Burrow, and that's wide receiver 1 numbers for Chase, right? So like that's where I struggle with these position for position ones. It's like, am I really getting that much of an upgrade here and downgrading? I think you're probably, like you said, semantically, you're probably, I don't know if that's a real word, but we're talking semantics. Like you're trading a couple of points here. So cap for life, gentlemen, all the emojis. I love the emojis. Look,
I do too, man. That's fun for us.
We got the heart. He's a Dolphins fan. We got a dolphin in there. I'm not sure what that's a salute. We got a point. All right, I love it. Cap
the algorithm says we still got a heart out of it, man.
I love it.
It's all good.
We just traded my Dobbins and Anthony AR5, Anthony Richardson, for JSN and Knicks. I like that trade.
Yeah, I like that trade.
I like that trade. That's a good trade.
That's pretty good trade.
I need 2 out of 4: Abdullah, McMillan, Dell, or Shoemaker.
Shoemaker.
Who are you taking, Kendall? You taking McMillan, Dell, the Schoon Man, and Amir Abdullah. Pick 2.
2 out of 4. I'm not doing Abdullah, man. I just don't trust anybody on the Raiders. I don't care if Tom Brady co-owner steps on the field. I ain't starting him either. So
nope.
McMillan, Dell, Shoemaker. McMillan's in kind of a dude. If you're ever gonna do it, it's here, right? So like, if you don't start McMillan here, drop him. Like drop him forever and never look back. Because if you don't start him here, you're never starting him. So I'm kind of starting him. I like him, and man, Shoemaker had like 8 targets this last game. That was kind of a lot of targets, man.
I'll tell you.
That was a lot of targets. I McMillan for sure, because upside's like really there, but like Dell or Shoemaker is like a real thing, man. And
you're taking McMillan as the easy one.
Yeah, I mean,
interesting.
I think so.
Interesting.
I'm not completely sold on it. Here's where I'm at. I'm at like Dell. Seriously, when is he going to impress me? Does Dell have a 15-point game in his range of outcomes? Does he? Yeah. He does, right? Like someone needs to remind me, though, because
he has to score. But yes,
but because if he has to score, I'm out. Like, what happened to the Dell that could get 100 yards without scoring, and it was a good game? What happened? Like, why does he have to score in a team that I don't think he's going to score? I don't think he gets in, right? So, like, do I think that can Dell catch 5 targets on his 5 balls on his 9 targets? Where'd the A-dot go? That's my biggest thing. Is why can't he get some yardage on it?
Do you think Jalen McMillan's getting 9 targets?
I'm trying to convince myself that the Jalen McMillan pick is an awful pick, and I'm just punishing Dell, and I think I am.
You're punishing Dell.
I'm thinking about it now, and I'm also looking at my rankings, and I have McMillan about 11 spots lower than Dell. So, like, nope, that's not happening. I'm just really pissed at him. It's Dell and Shoemaker.
Correct.
I have Shoemaker 3 spots above Dell in flex projections, though, so it is close. But I do have Shoemaker above him because I have him for more catches and targets.
He had 10 targets last week. This is Dell and this is Schoonmaker, and don't look back.
Yeah, it's Dell and Schoonmaker.
Jason Ortiz, would you start Ertz or Schoonmaker? Already starting Eckler. Oh wow, I don't know if I can say this without getting canceled.
Oh,
the Commanders defense, the Commanders kicker, and he doesn't want to start for Commanders. Thoughts? I would not start Zach Ertz over Luke Schoonmaker. Even though Zach Ertz, I think he scored a touchdown. He scored a touchdown last week. Even though that's fine. Schoonmaker 10 targets. There's no one besides CD. Even though the Cowboys are a complete joke, I I think there will be more targets for Schoonmaker out of necessity than there will be for Ertz.
It's a good portfolio play too. Like you really should. If you're getting a 4 at that point, like you should. You're only increasing your upside without decreasing floor. Like it's when you're at the 4th player on a team, like, yeah, my God, go for anything else. Yeah. This is just a better play. Yeah, good call.
Yep. Schoonmaker, Victor Blanco would like to know. I have Josh Allen, Bo Nix, Breece Hall, Josh Jacobs, Rashad White, Austin Eckler, Jamar Chase, Sutton, Neighbors, Jennings, Disley, Kelsey. Nice. Okay. I'm 5-6. I'm 7th in the league. If I win, I contend. I got offered Amon-Ra for Jamar. Are they the same? I'm going to answer this first. No, they are not.
Oh my God, no, they're not. Even
please do not trade. Please do not trade Amon-Ra. Let me say this correctly. Please do not trade Jamar Chase off of your roster to bring Amon-Ra onto your roster.
Yes, do not do that.
If you want to trade Amon-Ra off of your roster and bring Jamar Chase onto your roster, good job. Don't do it the other way.
Yeah, they are. Oh my goodness, they're not the same.
No.
It's interesting that like what would I because here's the real question is like Amon-Ra with what to get to Chase. And I'm like,
that's a good question. Let's answer that.
Dude, it's too much. Chase is so like in redraft, right? It's like Chase is such the definition of like you may not have a single solitary percentage chance to win if your opponent has Chase. That could happen. It might be that Chase
52 points 2 or 3 weeks
Chase
ago.
Might flat out tap you on the back and say thanks for playing. It was a good year. You really did your best and mean it. And it still will do nothing to your chances. That's how good he is. We're in week 12?
Yep.
So it's not about winning your week. It's about creating a roster that's going to win your title. You don't need the extra points on your lineup to get you through bye weeks at this point. I don't think you need your best starting lineup. And Jamar Chase in his 50 points versus Amon-Ra's 20 to 25 every day, all day, every day. It's not the same thing come playoff time. It's different categories too, right? Like I want Amon-Ra's 25 every day over Chase's 15 and 50, 15 and 50, 15 and 50, right? But come playoffs, I just want a chance at the 50. I don't care about the 25. That's what I want.
It's just simple numbers. It's just simple mathematics. There are too many mouths to feed in Detroit. There are not as many mouths to feed in Cincinnati.
They also don't score 50 points in Detroit every day because no offense ever does it, including the best offenses ever. It's unrealistic.
Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. I believe that Joe Burrow is going to win comeback player of the year.
Like
and
Burrow
I believe
Chase is more consistent than Detroit scoring 45 every single game, which
correct.
Is what they need to, because Amon-Ra doesn't get to 2 touchdowns until the running backs have 3. Keep that in mind, right? Amon-Ra never gets to 2 touchdowns until the running backs have at least 2 touchdowns.
The shame of it is that Jamar Chase is the overall wide receiver 1 right now. He is going to have a season, or he's having a season, I should say, that I think, unfortunately, because of their record,
it's going to get overlooked.
A lot of people are going to forget about. A lot of people are going to forget about. He has already. We are in week 12. He has 1,000 yards already and 12 touchdowns. He's the wide receiver 1. And he's got 73 receptions on 100 targets. And we still have a third of the real NFL season. We have a third of the real NFL season to go.
So in Dynasty, are you saying it's laughable that Jamar Jefferson is like, a million first-round picks? Chase is somehow cheaper when he has had
I just said it
significantly more elite season.
I just said it 15 minutes ago. I got Jamar Chase in a super flex league, start 3 wide receivers for Devonta Smith, what will become a late first-round pick because my team is 8-3, and a second. I should not have gotten Jamar Chase for that price. Kendall, I'm not saying this to rehash the trade. You paid me 3 first-round picks from Malik Neighbors, who we think is going to become elite, and we think is going to be a plug and play.
He might be like 87% of Jamar Chase on a good
That's
day.
my point. We think he's going to be a wide receiver 1, plug and play every week, assuming they get a real quarterback for probably the next 5 to 6 years of his career. That's what
he's my dynasty wide receiver 4,
and that's appropriately ranked. but he's
Chase
not the dynasty
is my
wide
dynasty
receiver
wide
one.
receiver one.
And he's my
has
dynasty
been
wide receiver one.
his entire offseason.
Agreed. The answer to the question, Victor Blanco, is get a team like I have in the league with Kendo where you have both. That's the answer to the question, because I have Amon-Ra and Chase.
Also,
That's what
never
you
get in
gotta
a
do.
league with me and Ruskin.
Yeah, don't
because
do that. It's not good. It's
That's
not good for you.
not going to be a fun day. Ruskin will have the best team, and I'll have 20 first-round picks.
It's not going to be fun for you. Kai would like to know.
Hey, you know, it could be fun. We have a good time.
We have a good time. You always have a good time. Kai would like to know, should I play JSN instead of Jennings since Purdy is out? You should play
Big
JSN.
fan of the show by Kai. Appreciate you, by the way.
Yeah.
Always commenting, always with like,
Love
Kai
it.
has like nuanced questions with context and exposition, and it gives
Love it.
us like chunky stuff. And
That's
Kai,
what we want.
you're real for that. I appreciate you.
By the way, if you are not subscribed to our channels, please do. I just threw my link into the Extra Point. That is my show that I host a couple times a week. Obviously, host the main show here on Friday nights with Rasta normally, but doing the whole thing tonight. Yes, you should play JSN. JSN's been really good lately. You know, Tyler Lockett, and I think he's finally beaten Tyler Lockett to that true wide receiver 2 role. I think we were all waiting for that to happen. He had obviously the big, huge wide receiver 1 game. What was it? 5,000 yards and 75 touchdowns he scored in that week that DK was out. But
I think the coaching staff understood that, like, fuck, the only reason we've been in this game for the last hour and a half is because JSN's really good at football.
Correct.
It's the only reason this game is still going on.
Yep.
Like, we've been trying to throw it to Lockett, and the fact is JSN's younger, faster, stronger, and better than he ever was, and I'm sorry, Lockett. Yeah, that was big. Honestly, it was big because the coaching staff got to see it. They got to see the best running against the best, and JSN just flat out was a better player in everyone's eyes than Lockett, and I think it was over. It was so important for JSN's ROS ranking was that game in particular. Because I think his target share just doesn't ever go down from there for the rest of his career.
Yeah, to be fair, one guy's 23 and the other guy's 30.
It's more of a like,
31.
dude, Lockett, you made it to 32, and we're still putting these rookies to
And
shame. Like Tyler Lockett would be like a Xavier Worthy's worst enemy. Like Xavier Worthy would never get a single snap on a Tyler Lockett team. He would just get absolutely shit on. You know what I mean? Like it takes someone as talented as JSN to do this.
Don't get me started on Xavier Worthy. We'll be here all night. Let's answer the second part of Kai's question.
I'm leaning into you. You know me. I live for pain because I own him everywhere.
We believe JSN is a great play this week. She wants to know Kareem Hunt, KW3 or B-Rob. This to me, the JSN Jennings
that goes
one's
fully out too.
Yeah, to me, this one's more interesting of the question because this I think has more meat for discussion here. I'm gonna just check my rankings really quickly because I want to confirm what I think my answer is.
I gotta check it too. Actually,
I have KW3. I have KW3 6 spots ahead of B-Rob. That was what I was checking. I don't have Hunt that high. I have Hunt at 17. I have B-Rob at 12, and I have KW3 at 6. I would play Kai. I would play KW3. Here's the caveat, because the question she asked was
Arizona's pretty awful against the run.
But she asked about JSN. And I am not normally a fan of playing 2 players on the same team. Now, I understand sometimes you have to do it.
JSN and Walker.
Right? They cannot score a touchdown on the same play. So in order for them both to have good days, the game script and the touchdowns have to go to the both of them. I would still play KW3 because I believe against Arizona, he should get enough volume, and he's a pass catcher, and he's healthy, which generally means Zach Charbonnet is not heavily involved. So I think you are actually giving yourself a better chance to get one of the touchdowns, whether it's a rushing one for KW3 or whether it is a receiving touchdown for JSN. But
that's tough.
I would just play both of them and I know it goes against my brand and it goes against my own, generally my rule of thumb, but that's how I would play it because I think, again, we talked about this earlier, ceiling outcome. I think KW3 has the highest ceiling of these 3 running backs. So yes, they can't score a touchdown on the same play, but one of JSN and Walker could volume their way yardage wise to make up for not scoring a touchdown. Do you feel differently?
This is tough. I feel differently, but for one very specific, emotional reason.
Please don't say it's because the Panthers.
No, I think
that's
Kareem knows this is it. This could be his last NFL game. Playing the Panthers. The Chiefs know Homeboy's about to get stuffed for the rest of the season. And in the Super Bowl, they're probably going to win.
No, they are not. No, they're not winning the fucking Super Bowl. No.
See, I got
No,
him
they're
on that
not.
one.
I'm putting it on my
Slide
Christmas
there.
list. Santa Claus is going to bring me because let me say this. I am fully ready to jump on the Lions bandwagon for the rest of the season because obviously the Niners are not winning the Super Bowl this year. We may not even make the playoffs at this. We lose to the Packers this week. Playoffs is going to become a stretch for the Niners. So this season might be a shot season for the Niners. And if the Niners can't win it, I am going to jump on Join America and say, go Lions. You can do it. I'm with you. Whatever their cheers and their supporting, stuff is, I'll learn. No, I'm kidding. But all right. That doesn't help her.
I'm
It's
just
fine.
saying,
Like, we can't agree on
I'm going with
everything, but
Hunt
it's
over
fine.
KW3 because I think
Because it's the Panthers.
I think that the Chiefs are in this, like, the NFL is going to make sure we win anyways. So we're just in a mode of, like, if it's kind of your last game getting 20 touches, we're going to send you off liking us so that you come back for cheap as fuck whenever we need you to, because that's how we do. Like, you come back for nothing, we give you a ring chance, okay? They're going to stay on his good side. They're going to give him 25 touches, and it's going to be enough touches that he scores an ungodly amount of fantasy points, because if you're going to tell me the RB1 for the Chiefs against the Panthers, and you're going to tell me I should start someone else other than the RB1, unquestioned, for the Chiefs over the Panthers, like, call it a system play, but there is no way in actual hell I'm going to bench the RB1 for the Chiefs over the Panthers, over literally anybody. I don't care if it's Nico Collins or fuck him. Like, I'm starting the RB1 for the Chiefs over the god-awful Panthers.
All right.
And I think 2 touchdowns is like minimum what he's going to be at. Like, that's the type of game I just predict. Like, what game script doesn't Hunt have a great game? A game where Patrick Mahomes all of a sudden has his first 4 touchdown performance of the season? Possible, but I think they lean Hunt for the most part in those game scripts. Carolina somehow challenges the Chiefs because the NFL really wants us to, like, pretend it's not close. Like, no, that's not realistic.
Even the Chiefs can't fake and pay the refs enough to get
no
that
one
kind
would
of.
fucking
Not this
believe
week.
it, right?
Not this week. If this game, no. Kai, here's the answer that we didn't suggest is if you have 2 flex spots, put JSN in your receiver spot, play Kareem Hunt and play KW3, and you should have good things happen for your team.
I'm very good with, like, the KW3 Kareem Hunt is, I think, very much a coin flip. I'll be the first person at KW3 is 5 spots higher in the ranking. So not your 6, but 5 for me is still not inconsequential.
Oh, I have it 11. I have it 11 spot. I have a significant difference.
You brought up a very good point, though, which I think makes sense because you shouldn't be just a ranking. I hate saying ranking score, but I'm going to throw it out there. Like, that's the terminology, right? The idea is, but these players' rankings correlate in a meaningful way, and splitting them up does raise your ceiling by a meaningful amount. I don't have a calculator. There is no objective calculator for calculating ceiling, but I think most people, including you, would understand that, like, starting 2 players from the same game lowers your ceiling than 2 players from a different game.
It always does. Yeah.
So that's kind of where,
unless those 2 players are Monty and Gibbs. And then you can do it.
Honestly, even the only way you can
do it.
Think, but yeah, you'd be yeah. So that's our points coincide. JSN's in your lineup. He's too damn good. Yeah. The team throws for a lot. The running backs, you win, I guess, is what we're really trying to say. Like, you're fine either way. Pick which way you destroy your opponent.
Yeah,
feels like 2 good options. Like,
I just struggle.
We thought we'd be getting gross questions, right? This is like, do I beat him
maybe
this
I need
way or
to
that
move.
way?
Maybe I need to move Kareem Hunt, like, because I have him behind Ramondre. I have him above Aaron Jones, behind Jones and Tracy. So
I had him buried when I thought Pacheco was going to play on a snap count. I thought Pacheco was going to get like 8 to 10 snaps, and that killed Hunt for me. But when Pacheco was 100% out, 0 snaps, just when I gave him, like, I tried to give him a snap share percentage and touches to that, and I'm like, I couldn't get him below 24 touches.
So this is the Matt Stafford conversation of running backs that we had earlier.
Unless Patrick Mahomes has to pass the ball 50 times otherwise.
No, he does. He's not going to need to.
So if he doesn't pass the ball 50 times,
the Panthers aren't going to score more than 12,
they're going to possess the ball
points.
200 times, right? So it's either Mahomes passes for 50 times or they run the ball 200 fucking times. And
I just can't get Hunt. This is my problem. I have JT at 13. I can't get Kareem Hunt ahead of. So the highest I can get Kareem Hunt is 14.
That makes sense. I mean, I have him just behind Monty at 16. But I have him ahead of Ramondre, Chuba, and Najee.
Oh, see, I have Gibbs and Monty back to back at 7 and 8.
Oh,
after it's not even just last week. It's just this. We had David Montgomery as a league winner on our preseason league winner show.
That was a good call. We should,
and that's as of right now. Check the box, boy. That's
Pretty
exactly what's happened. All right. Mr. Skrilla, Brock Purdy is hurt. Thanks for reminding it. No, I'm kidding. Brock Purdy is hurt, and someone is offering me Mahomes for Andrew. I assume this is meant to be Andrews. My starting tight end is Sam Laporta.
Shit, go get Mahomes, right?
Yeah, I don't see the downside here.
Shit. We were just talking about shit. This might be the only games Mahomes has to throw for 4 touchdowns because shit. Yeah, do it. Do it in a heartbeat.
I would do this. This doesn't. I mean, to me, it's what I would like to know, Mr. Skrilla, if you're still here in the chat, give us your league size, give us your format, give us your passing touchdown scoring, because it doesn't really move the needle for me. I would like to have all the information to make. Is this tight end premium? Like, I'd like to have all the factors to truly decide, but this is
like,
still.
I'm not saying it's like a crazy windmill slam dunk because Mahomes' value in single quarterback is significantly depressed.
Lower.
Andrews has gone up, but for me,
I would still do this. I would still do this deal.
Like,
this is still
I
an easy
would
deal.
trade Andrews for a low end QB1 if I needed to with upside.
And the fact that you're
Mahomes
getting Patrick Mahomes as a QB, the fact that we're saying Patrick Mahomes is a low end QB1, which is exactly what he is. Which, by the way, if you listen to the show and you don't normally listen to the late show, you listen to the early show, and maybe this is your first or second time hearing me, stop drafting quarterbacks in the second and third round of your draft. Please stop doing it.
Yeah, it's bad.
I don't like it's just going to make me upset. Actually, I take that back. If you play in a league with me, do it. Keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it a lot in the offseason when it comes to game theory optimal situations.
And scoring.
Come on. And scoring.
I think I saw a stat the other day that one of the kickers has outscored like half of the quarterbacks in the NFL this season.
Like, here's my simple statistic, right? You drafted Jaden Daniels. You feel good?
I drafted Jaden Daniels in the 12th round.
Okay, drafted him in the 12th round. Even if you were that good to draft him in the 12th round, Baker's the QB4, and you could have picked him up in week 2, like I did in every one of my leagues. I would be destroying you. So it's like you picked the best late quarterback. If you knew the results, you'd still pick him, right? If I can still beat you with a waiver quarterback and you handpicked knowing the outcome, your quarterback, if I can still beat you, what's the point of nailing it, right? That's how good streaming quarterbacks are some years. And me and you are definitely on the, like, Goff has a good schedule. Stafford's not getting drafted, right? We mentioned this. We mentioned Baker a few times as like a pass-first offense. We mentioned Kirk Cousins as like a dude, if he gets hot, who knows? Yep. There was a lot of guys we saw, like, they have potential. Like, shoot, Caleb could get hot. We said Herbert, when he gets healthy, could get hot. Like, we mentioned 4 to 5 league winners who you didn't have to draft, and that's
go look at all of our summer shows. CD Smitty, should I pick up and play Zach Ertz, Pop Douglas, Jordan Addison, or Christian Watson as a flex? I have Xavier Legette, Rico Dowdle, and Michael Pittman. I need to play 2. Okay. This is a great realistic bipocalypse question, because this is a man, sorry, could be a woman. This is a fantasy football player here who is hurting, like some of us are. This is a real one.
This is like, this is real, but I want to make the playoffs for sure. What are we doing? This is so good.
I'm going to look for ceiling here, and I'm going to go with, and CD Smitty, if you're in the chat, throw it in there for us. Is this full PPR? Is this super flex, single quarterback? I guess super single quarterback doesn't really matter, but if this is full PPR, I think that does help us, because if it's standard, then you're only looking at touchdowns. So, man, I've had a real hard time with Jaden.
Can you eliminate 2? You eliminate 2, I'll eliminate 2.
I just had a real hard time with Jordan Addison lately. I don't trust him.
I can't do Addison because his floor is so ungodly low.
The floor is low.
In a matchup where there will be no broken plays projected. Like, Chicago's not the defense you project him to, like, catch a rando touchdown. It's just not the secondary for it. You'd rather
he's trying to figure out
interception on the pass versus the long touchdown. Yeah, Addison is a first out for me.
I have Addison at 40.
DeMario is too low
41
of a ceiling for me, so I just got to get DeMario out as a guy who could catch 10 passes and still disappoint. At least Christian can catch 4 for 100, where DeMario has to catch 12 to get there. So like Addison and
I'm gonna play
Dowdle,
and I'm gonna play Dowdle even though it's disgusting.
80% snap share starting running back. He could fall in the end zone.
That's why I'm gonna play him. It's exactly
He's
why
my
I'm
first
play
in too. I'm between Dowdle and then do I go Ertz or Watson? Because I just don't think Pittman has enough upside in either case. I think Ertz and Watson have him beat for ceiling.
I'm gonna play Watson just because he can break a big one and Ertz can't. And if Watson breaks a big one, and here's the caveat: if Watson breaks a big one and does not score on that play, he could still finish with more yards than what Zach Ertz could get in a totality on the week. Bless you. If Christian Watson breaks, if he goes 2 for 67, and one of those is a 65-yard catch and the other is a 2-yard catch, is Zach Ertz really getting you 68 yards?
Ertz is going to take 6 catches of 6 to 7 yards each
for
and
34
getting
yards.
in the end zone for what Watson
Correct.
can do in half the production. Watson seems like a safer bet to give you what he could.
Dang.
Yeah.
The one time that I give a Christian Watson take, and Rasta's not even here to hear it, he'd be high-fiving me.
He might be enjoying life, but he might still be tuned in. You know, I don't think he can stay away. He might be listening on low volume with like a hidden thing going on, you know.
CD Smitty heating up in the chat here. He's heating up. He wants to know, should he drop Sam Darnold and pick up and play Gino?
Ooh, I don't know about that. I think I like Darnold the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's what
Gino,
I just wanted.
Generally. I know Sam Darnold's schedule's been a little bit rough. He's had some unluckiness, but I don't see any reason his early season form should disappear. I mean, he has more healthy weapons. No, I'd stay faithful to Darnold. If anything, Darnold's running backs are more banged up than Gino's.
Yeah,
his passing touchdown should go higher. If who am I thinking of? You know, if he gets a little more banged up and Aaron Jones, and he's already kind of known to get banged up. Cam Akers is not necessarily like a reliable running back to count on volume for. So like Sam Darnold actually projects to have a higher touchdown disparity.
Real quick, is Darnold healthy?
He got banged up a little bit,
but he's good. He said he's good to go. He's off the injury report. Yeah. Let's do this real quick.
Gino's like consistent questionability.
Here's the thing. Sam Darnold, week 15, Chicago, week 16, Seattle, week 17, Green Bay. Gino.
He's playing Chicago this week, though. I mean,
no. I was looking at playoff schedule. Week 15, Green Bay, Minnesota, Chicago. I would play Darnold because that's a hard defense. Green Bay in the playoffs, Minnesota in the playoffs, at Chicago for Gino. That's a tough playoff schedule. Assuming you're in the playoffs, D. Smitty, and we assume that you are.
Yeah, we're looking at Atlanta, Chicago, Seattle. Outside of week 15, 14 and 16 are really nice matchups for Darnold, particularly the 14th being the most important.
Yeah, I would keep Darnold, even though it's a rough week. Easy B, tough bye week for me. Do I start Juwan Jennings, Wan'Dale Robinson, or Pittman? All the QB situations aren't great. This one's actually easy for me simply because I think Anthony Richardson is the best quarterback of the 3 that are available, and I know that ain't good because he's not accurate and it's not pretty, but I don't know that Brandon Allen has thrown a pass in 2 years, and God only knows what Tommy DeVito is going to be. So you were high on Tommy DeVito earlier, Kendall. I assume this is between Robinson and Pittman for you. I'm going to take Pittman in this situation.
It is. I take Pittman because I think Detroit could put 40 points up in the first half, and it might be such a negative script that like A-Rich just has to throw, and it could get to a situation where like Pittman could not just have a good game, but he could have a stupid good game because that's how bad they're losing by, if that makes sense. You catch my drift in that type of game log where that's just not prevalent to the others. So that upside's good enough for me that it separates them. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Roberto Perez has two really good ones here. He wants to know if we could pick 2, Rachaad White, Cortland Sutton, DJ Moore, or DeAndre Swift.
Ooh, oh boy.
Roberto Perez, I see you had asked another question just a second ago. Is this full PPR? Is this half PPR? I don't think it's going to change my answer that much. I think I know my answer regardless of the scoring format. But Kendall, DJ Moore, Swift, Sutton, or Rachaad White?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Sutton's the for sure for me. His form's been ridiculous with the quarterback. It's just there's no way Sutton's not my number.
Full PPR
one.
from Roberto Perez.
Appreciate you, Roberto. Thank you for that. So Sutton's my easy in. From there, it's weird that like Rachaad White has the same projectable targets that DJ Moore does. That kind of strikes me as like, shit, why is that the case? But it's kind of accurate.
Baker's the check down king.
Baker is the check down king. Rachaad White can get in the end zone a number of ways. DJ Moore doesn't have to get in the end zone at all. Honestly, the ceiling for DJ Moore, I have to get real, and I have to admit that DJ Moore's ceiling is like 3 to 4 fantasy points, or say his floor. That's lower than you would expect from a player like DJ Moore, respectably, and with full respect on his name for that. But the offense has been that bad at times. Rachaad White doesn't have that low of a floor. They're still so devoid of options on the offense that they're going to pass it to him 4 to 5 times.
Yep.
He's going to catch most of those. He's got some goal line looks. He has a nose for the red zone a little bit. I think Rachaad White's floor is, I don't want to say significantly higher, but it's higher enough that I think it's meaningful. And his ceiling, as embarrassing as this is, maybe this is more embarrassing. His ceiling's probably higher too.
They're playing the Giants. The Vikings are playing the Bears.
DJ Moore has no multi-touchdown in him.
Correct.
In I don't think where Rachaad White legitimately has multi-touchdown upside.
This is Rachaad White and Sutton for me, and it's
yeah.
Not,
I'm with you. I had to talk myself through it.
Not
to
that
keep
close.
Sane.
Yeah.
For an anti-DJ Moore take, but I think I got to where you got in about 5 seconds. I just, you had to work with me a little bit, right?
I've had less of the booze than you have tonight. I've been sipping my water bottle, so no, I'm kidding with you. We're good. Roberto Perez also
is going to slow me down from out there.
That's true. That's true. Roberto Perez also wants to know: are y'all starting Will Dissly or Amir Abdullah as the starter this week? This is what the Bipocalypse has forced us to answer. And
Dissly,
woof, Buzz, your girlfriend. Woof. It is also Will Dissly for me. By the way, did you know, speaking of Buzz, your girlfriend, Wolf, did you know that Kevin McAllister's house is for sale?
Is it really?
The real house, yes.
I wouldn't think something like that would ever get put up for like regular market. I would think it would be like a specialty.
It's really I'll have to find the listing and send it to you. Not in the middle of the show, obviously.
So you can buy your family the McAllister house for the holidays if you want to.
So what's interesting about it is like obviously the outside of the house is the outside of the house. It looks exactly like it does in the movie.
It's in Illinois, right?
Yeah, it's in like the Chicago suburbs somewhere. So, but what's crazy about it is the way that like whoever owned the house like left it decorated for all the photos. The staircase is the same, but like it doesn't interior wise. They've redone it. It doesn't look the same. Like the kitchen is completely remodeled. Like there's a couple of photos that I saw because someone sent it to me on Instagram. So I was flipping through it because they're like Kevin McAllister's like, I know it was like $8 million. I made that up, but like it was like crazy expensive, right? And so I was looking.
Change that. I feel like you could lose $1 million in the sale.
That's what I said. That's the same thing I told my buddy. I was like, why would you not keep this house exactly as it was? Like that's the resale value. Like that's no offense. Like I obviously can't.
I would saran wrap that thing, dude.
Yes, I would not want to buy Kevin McAllister's house. Like don't get me wrong, it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous what they've done with it. Like that's the nostalgia. That's what I'm buying.
Yeah, no offense. I'm not buying your beautifully remodeled house. I couldn't give two shits about.
No, if I'm going to spend $8 million
every day.
Yeah, if I'm going to spend my $8 million, like I want to know that Marv and Harry are going to like burn their hand on the thing.
And honestly, I'm going to get sick of looking at Kevin McAllister's house. I'm going to redo it, but I'm not paying $8 million for you to do it for me.
The whole basement's redone. The whole basement's like a finished, furnished basement. It's gorgeous. I'm like, Marv's not going to hurt himself down here. Yeah. So anyway,
Check. Can we get some like, I need to get some questions here about like which house should we buy for, Kevin McAllister's or this? This is the questions we really need in the
question I need to know from the chat is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Because I have this conversation and /fight with at least
really
one or two
a
of my
question for you though. Okay.
No, it's not for me, but I have this fight with some of my friends every single year. Every year.
I hope we stay best friends after this. This is a real risk here, guys. Me and Phil have not pre-discussed this question.
It's
not in the show doc.
This was completely organic.
I want to know. There's just two types of people in the world.
Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Yes.
Oh, thank you.
It's a Christmas movie.
Need to stay friends.
How could it not be a Christmas movie?
I'm so legitimately happy. I was actually trying to figure out what my response would be.
It's filmed at Christmas. It's got Christmas trees in it. If you go back and watch Die Hard, the last line of the movie is the limo driver saying, "Man, if this is Christmas, I got to be here for New Year's."
Right.
How much more do you need to prove that it's a fucking Christmas movie?
I don't think he would have been as goodwill overall if it wasn't Christmas. He's kind of a piece of shit. He's been a piece of shit for a long time. Christmas, he needed it to feel better and do better. All right. I'm so glad.
Christmas movie. Easy B wants to know 12-man Dynasty Superflex. Did you see how we just went from Kevin McAllister's house to Die Hard to back to football? This is what
we're gonna get back there so fast. Though. It's not how fast we can get to fantasy. It's how fast we can get back off of fantasy if you give us anything.
Well, Easy B has given us 12-man Dynasty Superflex 2QB. Was offered. Oh, Kendall, we did talk about this name before the show today, so I'm curious on this one. Kendall and I were having a George Pickens conversation pre-show. He was offered George Pickens and a late 25 first and third. Oh, excuse me, I read that wrong. He was offered George Pickens for a late 25 first and third. Thoughts on making this trade?
I'm not doing it.
Okay.
I was doing it at some points this season. I'll be honest with you. I will share the one league that I bought him in that's similar to this format. It's Superflex, not 2QB, but it is a pretty standard like start 10, like 3 wide receiver, 2 flex. I paid, and this was a decent negotiation. Like there was some back and forth, and I had the option to walk away should I wanted to. I gave what I was hoping would be at least a late first, maybe a mid first. I'm contending still am. So it's somewhere between late and mid. I'm looking towards the mid side of it. But I wanted like I wanted 2/3 and a fourth back. So like I gave a first, I got like 2/3 and a fourth back, something along those lines, where it's like I did give my first, but I got lots of tiny pieces back. That was the only place I was comfortable doing it. That was preseason. If you're asking me where that's changed, I think it went up and came back down a tiny bit. You could convince me that straight first, late first by itself could make sense because that means for projecting that, you're also contending. So you're going from contending to super contending, which makes the buy make more sense. And you're buying a young asset. So instead of renting Devontae Adams or Debo or something like that, you're buying a long-term asset, which makes it a more palatable buy for the long term. So like there's lots of ways I can say, hey, if you're going to overpay, this is a good situation for it, right? That's kind of what I'm getting to. But I still think at a late first and a third, I think you're overpaying by a little bit. My price is personally a little bit lower. Man, you got to really think it's making the difference. I think it's a slight overpay. I'm mincing hairs, though. I hope that's known.
Let me give you some names because in a super flex league, quarterbacks are going to get pushed up the board, which means by default, the receivers are going to drop. Whether they should or shouldn't.
In the rookie draft, you got
correct.
Cam Ward's the the quarterback that's going to drop, right? And he might go before.
I mean, if you look at next year's class, you've got Burden from Missouri, you've got McMillan from Arizona, you've got
Genty is RB1.
Yeah, Genty's RB1. I was thinking of receivers though that I like coming out of next year. I don't know what Travis. Isaiah Bond, thank you, the kid from Texas. That's right. And then I don't know what
tight end from Michigan's up there.
I was just thinking of receivers, but yeah, I don't. So let's just go with those two. Let's go with McMillan, Luther Burden, and Isaiah Bond, right? We know that there are going to be guys that want to go get, let's just for argument's sake, really fast. Let's just say that Shedeur gets pushed up the board because he will. He's a rushing quarterback, right? Let's say that, someone has a particular conviction on Carson Beck because he's probably going to get pushed up the board. So right away, you're talking about, just like we had this year, you had the two big quarterbacks, Caleb and Jaden, and then you had Bang. You had Marv, you had Neighbors, you had Rome.
Yeah, it feels like the draft starts at 6. Genty is for
and that's
sure gone. The three big ones are probably gone. The 2 QBs are gone. So the draft starts at 6 or 7. One of the two is where it's
okay. All right. So let's say that you're looking at, I just pulled our league, the Hall of Fame. Okay. I just pulled our draft results. which I didn't have any picks in this year because I traded, but I have a loaded roster, so that's fine. I traded all my picks, and that's okay. But the rest of the draft was this. Would you rather have George Pickens or BTJ?
BTJ.
Okay. BTJ was the 110 in our league.
10 team, but yeah.
10 team, but
He also went a little bit late, but yeah.
Which is fine. Would you rather have Pickens or McConkey?
McConkey.
Would you rather have Pickens or Drake May?
May.
Would you rather have Pickens, Superflex, of course. Would you rather have Pickens or Bowers?
Bowers.
Okay. So, Emeka Egbuka, thank you, Alec Villarreal. I appreciate that. That was another name.
I kind of have him the same tier as Bond.
He's the Ohio State kid.
McMillan. He's
very good.
He's
very good.
But he's definitely in tier 2 with that.
Yep. I agree with that. So Egbuka is very good as well, right? So right off the bat, we've given you 4 names for next season that probably will be the 103 to 107 range. And I just gave you 3 names in a 10-team league that were all picked at the 107 or later, and you said you'd rather have all of them from this year's class of players that we have seen. I didn't name Bo Nix. Would you rather have Bo Nix or George Pickens?
Bo Nix.
Would you rather have Ricky Pearsall, who was a 3rd-round pick in this league, or George Pickens?
Gee, 3rd-round pick. Who you drafted? Oh, my God. Pickens for sure.
Okay. So we just threw 4 names. So I'd rather have the picks in this case. I'm different. I know you've got a million first-round picks in the leagues.
You know how I feel about my first, baby.
I know.
You can't possibly get more.
What I did say the other day was you made a trade in one of our leagues the other day for a first, and I literally laughed, and I was like, Kendall loves his first. And I looked, you only have 3 first-rounders in that league.
Super Bowl.
Is that what it was?
Well, I gave 3 of them to you. 2 of them.
That's true. 06. I know. I made a Kendall trade.
I had 5 plus an 06 one.
I never make Kendall trades, and I did it. I did a Kendall trade there, but I also needed to make that trade.
I also never give value trades, and I gave you I paid, right? Like, there's no way you ever feel bad about the assets you got back, right?
No, well, unless they all bust, but that's fine.
That's on you, though, man. Like, I gave you the shot at him, though, right? Like, that's got to be on you.
So here's my point that I wanted to make to answer this question for Easy B. I don't believe outside of outside of Patrick Mahomes being the quarterback for George Pickens somehow, that George Pickens is ever going to ascend to a level where he is a dominant wide receiver 1. No, I don't see it. I can't see it.
Next year could be worse than this year for him, or it could be a situation where the offense gets better, but his production stays absolute vanilla year over year, where the team gets better, but he stays the same and just has a weekend roll on it. Like, tell me that's not the most favorable range of outcomes, you know? Like,
he's the wide receiver. He's the wide receiver 13 right now. I'll pull a different league, so for comparison's sake, because that's a half PPR league. Let me pull a full PPR league. He is the wide receiver 13/14.
Yeah, I mean, he's right there.
Half and full.
1. And you could say he projects to be a 1, like an 11 or 12 ROS, because his production with Russ is much better than Fields. So that's fair if you want to project.
He is, but here's the one word that I just said: dominant. He was the wide receiver in full PPR in his rookie season, wide receiver 39. Then he was the wide receiver 30 last year. I get it. They had Kenny Pickett, and they had in 2022, Roethlisberger wasn't still there. He was a 2021, and he retired, right? So who was the quarterback in 22? Was it Pickett for 2 seasons? I can't remember. All right. Oh, it doesn't matter. The point is that
Pickett for a season and a half.
All right. So we'll have to figure out who the quarterback was in 22. But the point being is this. I don't see a world. I don't see a path where the talent of George Pickens is a good enough talent to outperform, and this is the key, what a first-round pick could become.
Yeah. Unless their defense implodes and he gets 15 targets a game. No,
first-round picks can bust. We know that. We know that any player can bust, just like any player can get hurt on any play. So you can't play of like, oh, well, this guy's injury-prone. Bullshit.
He can be JSN next year, though, if he wants. You know what I mean?
But the Steelers, with Arthur Smith, who's going to be the offensive coordinator, are not going to be a pass-heavy team. They're going to run the ball. They're probably going to have some version of Russell Wilson / Justin Fields / insert
2025 developmental.
Right. Yeah. Insert developmental. Mason Rudolph was the quarterback in 2022.
That's what I know. It was like half a season where there was some stuff going on there. Yeah. Mason was actually halfway decent.
He was. Right. So I don't see with the scheme of Arthur Smith, with the talent of George Pickens, with the way that Pittsburgh does things, this is not a player who is going to demand every single, like, did you watch the Hail Mary last night?
Yep.
This motherfucker is fighting in the stands instead of trying to catch the game-winning touchdown. Yeah. And I'm sorry, but for those that listen that hear, like, have heard me talk before, I'm a former coach. That kind of stuff matters to me.
Yeah,
you're more concerned with some petty bullshit beef that you're having that you could fight afterwards about than trying to win a football game when you're a playoff team. Because what happened last night, realistically, probably cost the Steelers a chance at the number 1 seed. Because now they're 2 games back. Because Kansas City's going to beat Carolina this week. Yeah. So instead of the Steelers being 9-2, they're now 8-3, and Kansas City's going to win, which makes them 10-1. That's what's going to happen. And now the road to the Super Bowl goes through Kansas City or goes through Buffalo instead of potentially getting a home game for the Steelers and then maybe a second home game as the 2 or 3 as the 2 seed, because they're probably going to finish as 3 seed now.
Yeah,
losing that game, that's what that does.
I mean, is it fair to say, look, we compare this to like me and you've been playing Dynasty a long time, right? So we don't just say like, oh, I'm getting vibes on this player because we're so close to the game. No, we've just been playing it so damn long to know
looking at numbers.
Like the history, like I think it's relevant for you though, because you're not just a very good fantasy analyst, but you are a Division I college coach. That's on your resume, and you are quite good at it. And so from that standpoint, you can definitely speak to the fact that when a player has it, this is me projecting. So you come in and say what you got to say, because like while I played, in college, I wasn't on your level in terms of the scope and scale, right? But there's just no way you are fully a part of that team doing what you did, when you did, how you did it. There's a disconnect between you and the head coach, you and the team, for sure. That wouldn't be in your head if you were fully in sync with your team.
George Pickens almost got benched last year for not blocking on a play when Najee Harris should have scored a touchdown.
And there was already press earlier this year about effort plays. We know they tried to buy every player under the sun, except every player kept breaking some sort of 3-letter acronym before they got the deal done, right? Like they were after 2 meaningful players at some point, ended up with Mike Williams as their third option. You know what I mean? Like they tried to bring in Kirk, and Kirk would have destroyed him.
I'm going to do this because I think what I'm about to do is going to be correct. This is where the trade calculators fail you. I'm on keep trade cut. I'm putting it in right now. Because I've always said this, keep trade cut, good tool, great website, not
please
the
kill them though. Like I've had so
not
many people
the
message
gospel.
me like the keep trade cut stuff. And I'm like, by next year, you're killing me in this deal. Like,
so here's what I just put in. Because I said, I guarantee Pickens is going to be worth more. I put George Pickens, is super flexes on, Pickens on the left versus a late 25 first and third. Pickens' value is higher. It is the on paper better. Correct. And here's what I want to tell you. Ready?
Makes no sense. Come next year, that makes no sense.
George Pickens is the wide receiver 14 in full PPR on the season. Okay? Good. High wide receiver 2. How many touchdowns, Kendall, does George Pickens have this season?
I would guess 2.
He has 2. Let's go and do BTJ, and let's go and do McConkey. Ready?
McConkey 4 and 4? 3 and 4.
Brian Thomas Jr.
BTJ has 4, right?
BTJ has 5.
Oh, 5. Even better. And McConkey has 3, I think.
Laddie has 4.
Oh, I'm under projecting, man. My boys are growing up so fast.
These are numbers that it's one season. It's not even a full season. Touchdowns are not everything, but I've said it 1,000 times on my shows. I've written about this in my content. Touchdowns win fantasy football games. So if I'm looking at a wide receiver 1, easy B, and I'm trading a late first, I better get touchdown upside out of it. And I cannot tell you, Mike Tomlin can't tell you on a week-to-week basis who is going to score a touchdown for his football team.
Or they're going to score at you with that defense.
Because it could be Pickens, it could be Najee, it could be Warren, it could be Freiermuth, it could be a defensive TJ Watt fumble recovery for 6 points. It could be some Calvin fucking Austin, who I think scored last night. Like
imagine if Terry McLaurin were 10 years younger and half as involved. How would you feel?
Yeah. Please keep trade cut. It's fine. It's a good tool. Use it to make sure you're not getting taken to the bank, to the cleaners, whatever phrase. You're not getting highway robbery.
You know I want to get your take on this because this is like a good way to like wrap if that's what we end up doing. Is like
I think we only have one question left. So
a lot of people have keep trade cut takes, and like especially I want someone to clip this because like for anyone I've ever traded with and will trade with, like hear me out and listen to this, right? There are going to be plenty of times where I promise you Phil's the same way. Me and him talk trades for hours. We already have. I know the way he thinks and vice versa. We might be off by a little bit philosophically, but we're pretty tight on our valuations because of how we generate our value systems, and it's not based on keep trade cut. It's a good market snapshot, but it's a snapshot. It's one slice of time. As soon as you go and you're a rebuilding team, you need to look at like what is this player you're getting or this pick? What is this things? If you go on Yahoo Finance right now, you can go look up any stock. You can go look at its charts and curves, right? Over a long period of time. I find it fascinating that like you could chat GPT and make a Yahoo Finance app just through talking pretty easily, right? Why does keep trade cut not give you like a futures graph of where something's trending?
Yeah, I mean
it gives you history. It doesn't tell you shit about where the stock is going. And if you're trading in Dynasty, if you're rebuilding, you only give a shit about next year. And if you're winning now, you only care about this microcosm, but you also kind of care about what's left of the thing you just rented for an egregious price, right? The futures value is a real thing, and that keep trade cut doesn't do that. It doesn't do that here. Saquon's trade value is, I think, affected by that, but because he's so good next year,
100%,
he should still project insanely highly, where his 2-year value after next year probably tanks quite a bit, right? This is why Mixon's value is probably like you got to look at like what his trade value is right now is so much lower than his real value, right? Because they're going to draft someone most likely like his value could plummet. That's kind of how I see some of these things. So I guess that's my take.
Keep trade cut in a straight up trade. It's a super flex has Joe Mixon as the less valuable asset over George Pickens. If I switch this to single quarterback, it still has George Pickens as the less valuable asset than Joe Mixon. There's 2 factors to this: age and market, because this is what Keep Trade Cut does. And again, I think Keep Trade Cut's a great website. I use it a lot for all kinds of different
I won't slander them.
I'm not slandering them at all. It's a great tool. They've got all kinds of cool tools. Don't only judge by the gospel of this is what it is. I'm not getting fair value. No. Joe Mixon is what, RB3 on the season, Kendall? I have to look. I think he's RB3.
Minimum, probably even getting better, right? You'd project him as top 3.
I think he's
ROS,
RB3,
right?
Mixon is RB7 in full. So
he
I
missed a couple games. PPG, I think
games.
he's like 2 or 3, but in total points is going to be off, right?
All right. But Mixon scored 3 touchdowns last week. We just said Pickens has 2. And I'm not bashing Pickens. I don't want people that are listening to be like, oh, Phil hates Pickens. I don't love him. I'll be honest. But I'm not sitting here bashing him to the point of like he's a terrible player. But what I'm saying is, if you look at a first round pick, the idea is that I want to be able to shoot for the chance that I'm getting the next Jamar Chase, that I'm getting the next Justin Jefferson. That's what we're all a
BTJ,
right?
Like
and that's
a good player on a bad team that can be significantly involved and is the close to 1A or 1B at any position given, whatever it is.
Right.
He can be foundational at a position for you.
That's my point. So when I shoot for the Jamar Chase and the Justin Jefferson and I don't get him, which none of us are until the next guy comes along, and one person in your league is going to draft that particular player, and hopefully it's you, then you're right. And that's exactly what I say. Then my default is I'm looking for higher ceiling than what I know George Pickens is going to give me today, than what I know Xavier Worthy, Michael Pittman, that flat tier we talked about all summer. Now, Drake London has left that flat tier.
Right. Like
Garrett
either
Wilson,
look for elite production or you're fine flattening it out and saying, I need multiple shots at that elite production.
It's the same argument that we had.
right? Like 3 seconds versus Pickens if you can project some of those seconds as early or mid, I would probably take that in a rebuild because you're going to have more chances at better than Pickens. Your upside. You need upside. You don't need the same. You're not going to replace Pickens with a 1 year younger version of Pickens.
I drafted Devon Achane. I drafted Devon Achane in the middle of the second round last year. For the simple fact of the same reason that everyone drafted Devon Achane in the middle of the second round, because he's small. Because quote unquote,
they drafted Kincaid above him.
Correct. Because his quote unquote body cannot take the workload of an NFL running back. And that is true. He's not a 3-down running back. But we've talked about this. Achane can do in 17 touches what Kamara needs 30 to do.
Except you also put on 20 pounds of muscle. And it's just
sure.
Yeah.
But
also, some people aren't born Xavier worthies.
And that's fine, right? Like, and it's
I didn't think he could put on the muscle. I was shocked.
I didn't either. But I guess this question kind of got me fired up, because I get to a point where we have to. You want to be a good football analyst. You want to be a good sport analyst. Watch the sport. Because if all you're doing is box score hunting or trade calculators, or well, this guy's so old because Derrick Henry's so old, he's going to suck and I should get him off my roster as fast as possible. Watch the game. What do your eyes tell you? Because if you can't answer your own questions sometimes, and Kendall, I ask you guys questions. We do this show every single week. We ask questions. We get asked questions in chats, in DMs, on this show live, and we answer them for all of these fans, and we love doing it. But we still ask each other questions like, hey, what do you guys think of this trade? Which side are you on? We probably do, 2 or 3 of those a day?
I mean, that's
easily.
Low. That's honestly pretty low, because normally it's 2 to 3 a day, but we go into 20 to 30 responses for each.
Right. Because there's 6 of us on the group chat.
Like, wouldn't you say one of the benefits of being doing what we do is that we fully recognize when we're not hyper opinionated about a particular spot, so we crowdsource it amongst experts and we get a feel for the range of takes. And no matter where you're at, that helps you understand market value in a very, very elite way, because you understand how people view a player, how a market views a player versus what their static snapshot KTC value is, are 2 very, very different things. Because just like you might predict a game script for a player to go one way, we might say positive or negative game script is favorable or not favorable. We can say that and do those same extrapolations for dynasty value and be right or wrong by some amount, right? But that's what we're doing. And in many cases, we're often saying, hey, no problem. I don't disagree with the KTC value, but I do think that clearly this player is X age. He's going to lose 10 to 15% value because he's going into a season 1 year older, already being older at a position. That's not even being ridiculous. That's saying the KTC number is going to drop 10 to 15% because math. And you have to, if you're going to use KTC, you should also agree with that person when they use KTC's math and what it will do. It just, KTC doesn't project in the future, but if you used it multiple years, you know how it's going to go, right?
I mean, I just think I just threw in, where am I? Fantasy Pros. Now the website's not updated, so I'm going to ask this Fantasy Pros question again tomorrow. I asked you guys early in the week, JSN or Debo, and our group chat was very split as to who it should be and why. Right?
Yeah.
Classic was very JSN. Here was his metrics.
I'm on the JSN side, yeah.
You were on the JSN side, right? I don't remember Rasta's answer because I had a hell of a week at work, so I missed a little bit. But Tycoon was very on the Debo side. Now Tycoon is a Niners fan. I get it, right? Fantasy Pros. I just threw it in there. Who should I start? Scoring is full PPR. They just updated it. Okay. It was 97% Debo. And they just refreshed it really quickly and changed the setting. Now it's JSN, but that's because Brock Purdy's out. But my point is that we had a very serious conversation about who should you start. Now, this was when Brock Purdy we thought was still going to start the game this week. But again, it's go with what the calculator says. Go with what the crowdsource says, the most expert. Go with what your eyes see. Watch the game. What do you believe? Who's the good matchups? That's where a lot of this stuff really becomes just, it's not second nature, but I'm with you, dude. I really struggle. I have had it in leagues. We've all had it. There's people listening to the show that know exactly what I'm about to say here. And they go, oh yeah, I definitely have that, where someone will send you a trade and they'll send you that screenshot.
From the
And
KTC.
it's like,
like,
from KTC.
I think
and
this
it's like,
is pretty fair.
"But
What
this
do
is
you
a pretty
think?
fair trade. Look, it says it. I'm like, you know what you can do on Keep Trade Cut? You can go find a way to add 17 assets to equal Patrick Mahomes. And yep, because it's a fair trade on paper, but I only have 14 spots on my roster. So what do we, you know what I mean? Like, no. So, all right.
Yeah.
Tangent over.
I've gone like, I'm almost to the point where I think I'm going to, I haven't recorded it yet because like KTC, I know you're coming for me. You probably will, but let's collaborate instead of you coming for me. I love you as a tool.
It's a great tool.
I
Great website.
hate that people misuse and overquote what
Correct.
you're trying to tell them.
Correct.
You tell them a specific piece of data and they take it way too far. And when I try
Correct.
to project that data using reasonable models, they lose their damn mind. And you know, and I know that I'm not saying I'm right, but math kind of makes sense when you chart it out, right? That's kind of where I'm at with it. So maybe we figure something out one of these days, but I'm definitely in the opinion of we could rework that just a tiny bit.
Peanut Breath OG. I love that name, by the way. That's great. Who am I dropping to replace Devonta Smith?
Oh, wow.
Ingram, Pitts, Love, or the Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni?
I think Jalen Hurts probably.
I don't know if I understand the question. Who am I dropping to replace Devonta Smith?
I think Devonta Smith is
who
out this week, so he
Right.
has to drop somebody, and his team is loaded probably, and the Eagles head coach is in there as a fuck my life thing, I think. I'm going Ingram. I don't think that team fully recovers in the same way where like I would still stash Love and Pitts because I'm going to have Pitts over Ingram rest of season in most cases, although it's close. That's probably what I'm doing, and it's the least of several evils.
My answer was going to be Love only because I'm not a huge fan of having two quarterbacks in a single quarterback league.
Yeah, that's fair. And if it's a shorter league,
and they're through their buys. Like Love's through. So unless you have Jaden Daniels, who's a week 14 buy, and you need Love for that, or Lamar, right? Exactly. Or like somebody late for a week 14 buy, then that's fine.
Yeah, basically,
my answer then would be
no. It's only Burrow, Lamar, Jaden.
Burrow's out this week.
Everyone else is good.
No, Burrow's this week. It's right now.
Oh, so he's already figured that out. Then.
He's week 12.
Yeah, good call.
So my answer, if it's it would also be Ingram. If you're going to keep Love, because Love's obviously the best player of these three, so that's fine too.
It's fair to say like conditional, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. This is we got one more after this.
Ultimate.
Santos, not you, Santos, but a different Santos.
My better half. What up, bro?
He says sit one PPR: McBride, Bowers, Tyreek, Jennings, DK, or McLaren. Terry, wow, sit one. It's Jennings for me.
Jennings for me.
Because
it's
of the quarterback
between him
situation.
and McLaurin, sadly, but it's Jennings.
Yes, correct.
I don't think I can trust McLaurin, but I definitely trust him over Jennings.
Wicked Pompano, inject Coach Phil's fire straight into my veins. Appreciate you, dude. Great supporter of the show. G Santos want to know what's the Brock news. It is the Brock Purdy is out. It is not, I repeat, it is not Brock Bowers. So Brock Bowers, as far as right now, is good. Should be playing and should get everything.
If it's Brock
in that
Bowers
offense.
News, you'll know because I'll cry.
Kendall will cry. That's right. Kendall will cry.
I was wrong on Worthy, but I was so right on Bowers, so it's fine.
We're not going to be right on every player. That's how it goes. That's why we do this. That's what makes it fun.
I missed on Kincaid last year, so like double dipping into Bowers this year and staying with the process, I got rewarded. It feels good.
We are right far more frequently than we are wrong, but we are never ever 100%.
We only remember the times we're wrong, though, man. Like
That's
other
right.
people
That's
we
right.
beat have to remind us when we're right because
I can tell you my entire playing and coaching career, I probably can only tell you a handful of games that I remember winning and what the score was. Like when we went to UCLA and they were the number 3 team in the country and we beat them 3-0 on their own park. I will always remember that. When I went and took my guys to North Carolina State and they were ranked 25th in the country, and it was my second ever game as a head coach, and we won 3-1. I'll remember that for the rest of my life. But those losses, fuck, I can tell you who was in what spot and what minute it was. Oh, I don't even want to talk about it. But yes,
I remember mediocre trades where I think I paid a second rounder too much. I remember those more than championships I've won. Like anytime I've lost a trade.
Well, when you win enough championships, Kendall,
I can't sleep.
When you win enough championships, when you got that big trophy behind you, you just kind of, winning just becomes second nature to you. So Ricardo Andre.
This is from like my lowest buy-in league, by the way. It's just a league I care
Beautiful.
more about because my wife and coworkers are in it, and I paid for the trophy myself. So I'm a total poser in this league, but that is my rightful trophy.
I want the ring. I always just want. I've got them on my shelf here, but I just want the rings. It's just
I pay Trophy
nice
Smack a lot of
football.
money for trophies I won't win because I think someone should have one.
Appreciate Trophy Smack being a sponsor. We didn't get the sponsor. All right, Ricardo Andrade. He would like to know, as the last question of the night, pick 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, 1 tight end.
Oh, so we get to pick 4 of these, I think, right?
I think so. I think that's what he's asking. That's why I paused. Pick 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, 1 tight end. 10 team, full PPR. Lad,
There's
DJ
no tight
Moore.
ends in the mix.
Yeah, I'm curious what. I'm not. Yeah, I'm struggling here as well.
Do you want to
actually.
pick 3? Let's drop the tight end. Let's say pick 3 out of these 6.
I guess. Oh, well, I was scrolling down to see if there was more, but like there's nothing else. This is his only. Okay. All right, let's just do it. Lad, DJ Moore, Ridley, Swift, Chuba, or Hunt. So let's pick 3. PPR, I'm going to take Lad as an easy one. I'm going to take Hunt as an easy one. And that leaves me between Swift.
And Chuba for me, I think.
Chuba, but Chuba's playing the Chiefs, which makes me want to lean Swift, even though it's the Vikings. But I would take Swift over Chuba. I know my rankings don't have to be exactly how I would do it, but I want
Actually,
to.
it's Chuba Ridley for me. Swift's upside's just so low. It's end zone or bust for Swift is where I'm at. I think Chuba.
I have
Ridley
Chuba ahead of Swift.
I do too. I think Ridley I have lower than Swift, but I think his range of outcomes gives him a shot at some upside. I lean Chuba though, so I'm basically led Chuba Hunt is really where I'm at.
I just can't get on board. So Will Levis, if you haven't looked, by the way, you should. Will Levis is a 0.5 passing touchdowns this week.
Oh, is he a free square? Yeah.
No, it's not a free one. It's like a.
Oh, that's just Will Levis.
That's his. Yeah, that's his line.
Yeah, I mean, I don't project Ridley for a touchdown. Like Ridley is just a guy where I can project 80 to 90 yards on 14.
No, but my point in saying that was like I took Levis as the over this week because he has thrown at least 1 touchdown. He's only thrown 1, but he's thrown 1 touchdown the last 3 weeks. So because when I was looking at like some lines last night, when I was getting some like, you know how I always do like early bets and then I do like late bets late, but I was getting some early lines in this week before the lines really changed. And I was like, this is wrong, right? Like this can't, because like everyone else was like 1.5 or 2.5 passing touchdowns. This fool was 0.5 passing touchdowns. And I was like, all right, I'll ride with that. Click the button. It was like 5 as a 4 or 5 legger on the parlay, but
I might need a game time. It's definitely Lad and Hunt. I'm convincing myself I might fade Chuba because God knows what the hell they're thinking. I don't know what they're going to do with Chuba's snap share, what it should be. They're so god awful. I don't know what the fuck they'll do. They might be like, Chuba, you're too good for this game. Let's just see what the fuck the rookie does. I might have to go Ridley or Moore in the 3rd spot just as like I know what they're going to be at a minimum. And Chuba feels really risky. And like the low end of that risk doesn't feel equal to the low end of DJ Moore Ridley. So I think, and I lean Moore over Ridley in terms of they can both get 12 targets, but I take the touchdown upside of what Caleb could do. So I'm going to finish with Lad, Moore, Hunt. But it's close between Moore and Chuba. It's really close.
I'm going to take Lad, Hunt, and I'm going to take Ridley because it's full PPR. As much as I see that Chuba's got the volume, Chris Jones is an animal.
Yeah. Ridley might have 10 catches. 10 catches for 80 yards is still 18 points.
He also might have 3 catches for 12 yards.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen enough of that too, right?
Here's the point.
DJ Moore's low end, I think, is 3 catches, 45 yards, 5 targets. Like it's low, but it's not as low. Ridley's floor is lower than DJ Moore.
It is because they're bad, but he's the only guy there.
Yeah,
I
think we're mincing. It's
him and Pollard.
Close. Is it fair to say, like, would you take into account, and would this be your tiebreaker? Do you need a Hail Mary because you're projected to lose by 10 plus, or do you need stability? Like, if I need 10 points, I'm throwing Chuba in there. I'm not thinking twice. If I'm projected like, ooh, this is rough, I'm going Moore for like top end upside because I think Moore's upside is better than Ridley if they have a good game. So like on the outcome, we're like best overall outcome. DJ Moore catches 2 touchdowns and blows up. Ladd does the same, and Hunt blows up. I think they're the most obvious to have a blow up game.
Yeah, I mean, the easy answer is Chuba, but the problem is I can see so many ways where it goes wrong.
Or like they're getting blown
Chuba.
out by 40 at half, and the entire second half is just like, hey, whatever, we'll play the rookie because what do you do when we?
Yeah, but like you've watched the Chiefs this year, like they're the worst. Well, they were the worst undefeated team in the league. Now they're the worst one-loss team in the league. Like they are not the Chiefs.
They're the strongest run defense.
Their defense is what is getting them. I mean, like I'm always a guy that offense wins championship. Oh, defense wins championships. Well, except for you have to score to win games, guys. But like the Chiefs aren't scoring like the Chiefs have of the past years. Their defense is unbelievably good.
Even the Giants look good against the Panthers, though.
Did they?
No, they didn't actually. They fucked that one up too. But
I mean, wasn't that the Germany game? I didn't watch it.
Okay, that I think that was the Germany game.
I was not, because
I'm kind of at the like
you East Coast guys get the European games. Us West Coast guys, unless it's a good game, I'm not getting up that early in the morning to watch. And I'm definitely not getting up to watch the fucking Panthers and the Giants.
Roll the fucking shit out of the Panthers, right? Like, or is it this? Are there 2 outcomes? They beat the shit out of the Panthers, or it's a strangely close game where they still beat the Panthers. But isn't it still a coin flip as to whether or not they absolutely beat the tar out of them?
I don't think it's a strangely close game, but I don't think that they blow them out. I think they win comfortably. I think they cover.
Is it close to, how last week we were like, look, Detroit's going to put up points. Whether that's a Goff game or 5 for the running backs and Goff has 10 points. I'm going to go with the offense that should score a fuck ton against the free square. I guess my hyper point in that is like, I guess I'm leaning towards the team that if it goes well, they could break some sort of record and score 80 points in this piece of shit team.
Kansas City by 11. I don't know if they cover. I don't know if they get there. They might.
It's one where like I want to either like hit the unders and bet the overs on the props, or like
that's
bet
what I'm
the
doing.
Overs on the props and smash the under on the game or something.
That's
like,
what
I want to like hedge some way.
I'm taking. Well, I don't really ever bet over unders anyway. I always bet props, but I would always take the props just because that range of outcomes is much easier to predict than the over under.
Yeah.
So, all right, children. It is Thanksgiving week. For those of you who are traveling, travel safe. Enjoy the time with your families. Have a wonderful start to the holiday season. Kendall, any last thoughts, man, before we get the heck out of here tonight?
Not too many. Just hey, family time is important. You never know when you're gonna get to see the next family member for the last time or whatnot. So like cherish it. Even the grumpy, I don't know, racist, crazy aunt, grandpa, you got or whatever, whoever's in there, man. Just I'm a big family guy. Had my first daughter this year, got one son, but like family means a lot to me. I love that the fantasy community, like it's been awesome. Like you guys get it. I've not met a single bad person in the fantasy community. I really like the hardcore guys in my leagues, the guys in chat. So just please, if I were to give y'all any advice from me and Phil over here, cherish some family, man. Have a good time. Yeah. Enjoy the time with them. We'd love to see you back afterwards, but no, man. Spend some good quality time with the family. Tune out for a little bit. You'll never regret it.
Yep, agreed. Enjoy it. Everyone travel safe. Have a great start to the holiday season. I will not be here next week. I will be on a plane coming home from Chicago next Friday, so I will not be on it. Just realized that as I said that. I was like, damn. But for everyone here at the Get Right Fantasy Network, for Kendall, for myself, for Classic Mike Rasta, for Frank and Dustin Tycoon, happy holidays to y'all. We out.
Right fantasy is the play. Marking nothing but I tune every Friday. Strategies provide.